Go for it. Smash!
G'day and welcome to On The Esky, an Australian sports podcast where we like to wrap up the week in sport, drink a few Denzel Frothingtons and talk some absolute dribble. In today's show, the massive news coming out of England. Joe Root has stepped down. Roop has stepped down as the captain of England. We've got the week that was in the IPL, the weeks in the NRL and AFL that will continue here on this Easter Monday. NBA playoffs finally here. Soccer, there's only 4 left in the Champions League, plus some NFL news with the draft upcoming and a quieter final round with a little bit of news in the fighting realm and golf. As we like to do here, we shout a beer. Sean, who have you got for your shout a beer this week?
I went with Manus. First, I want to say I'm welcome back to being normal sized for me after last week. So
welcome yourself back.
Yeah, I like being natural sized, not being twice the size of everyone else on the body.
Would you like to elaborate on that?
With Michael here, I'm seating a little bit far forward. It was like,
my head. It was the camera. You haven't actually halved size.
Yes. So I was shouting out Manus this week for his role in county cricket, bowling some seam, taking a few wickets. And I think the chat is, of course, going to be in the Australian dressing room about how to avoid the constant niggling and nagging from Manus to be able to bowl some seam after he's can't bowl his leg spin anymore. So
Pat Cummins will be thrilled, I think, with Manus coming into the next test going, Paddy, give me the ball. I'm bowling meds. I'm coming in like Brett Lee.
That's it. Well, Cummins could probably take his spot back at the moment.
True. No, that's some good chat there for the Aussie dressing room. So that was my shout out beer for the week.
Yeah, so county cricket is underway. Fair few Aussies over there. Fair few Aussies having a crack now in the IPL. We'll chat about those shortly. Monks, who would you like to shout a beer this week?
Yeah, so this is the second week in a row that we're taking it to the race course. After who did you shout a beer last week?
Damien Oliver.
That's right.
Yeah. Most Group 1 wins ever out of Australian jockey.
Nice, yeah. So not going to jockey, not going to trainer. I'm going the horse. Probably the first shout a beer we've had for animal.
Can a horse drink beer?
No, they probably can't.
They probably shouldn't.
They can, but
a little sip wouldn't hurt. Spill a beer and the dog licks it up, and they're always fine. So, look, I'm not condoning that. I'm just saying that you asked the question: can they drink beer? They probably can have a little bit.
I mean, the logical answers probably would have been give it to the trainer or the jockey, but I'm not too logical when it comes to the potty.
Also, not the first horse to be shouted a beer on this show because I believe I shouted very elegant after the Melbourne Cup win.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Second horse.
There we go. Second horse
to get a beer from us.
Yep.
A metaphorical one.
That's it. Well, the story to this horse, it's a 3-year-old colt over from New Zealand. Won its first race in only its third start, 1200 metre at Aquis Park in the Gold Coast. Few things special with this one. Firstly, it was the first race back after the colt fell in a race in Ipswich the other month. I guess the second point is the horse was or still is part owned by the late great Shane Warne.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so as the horse crossed the finish line, the jockey had a nice little tribute to Warne. He threw his arm, rolled his arm over, tried to do a bit of spin as they crossed the line, and I guess just a nice fitting sort of story, I guess, to the whole saga that's happened over the last couple of months. A little silver lining to it all.
Bit of serendipity, if you will.
That's it, yeah. And if anyone's interested, any punters out there, its next race is on Wednesday, race 6 in Ipswich. So keep an eye out for that one. Yeah, quick turnaround, yeah.
4-day turnaround. There you go, Sacred Oath. And I will be shouting Gil McLaughlin a beer. He announced this week will be the former CEO of the AFL that he'll be stepping down at the end of the year. 8 years in charge. I think he did a pretty good job. Continued to grow the game. Was never really in the news for the wrong reasons. And didn't change the rules every 2 weeks like we see in some codes. Not to mention any names. Peter Valandis. So shout out to Gil, and it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion this year as to who will end up taking over.
His replacement.
Hopefully not Eddie Maguire.
We'll talk about that when we get to the AFL section. But
and the mop of this week.
Several mops.
A bit of a theme of pitch invaders, streakers, protesters. lots of people entering the playing arena in both Australia and overseas. So we had 3 pitch invaders, I think, in last week in the NRL. One famously getting absolutely poleaxed by the security guard. A lady, not in the full nude, just running in
top off the bra.
Yeah, just the bra, and the secchi has absolutely laid her out with the cleanest.
Trevor Guildmaster out there.
Yeah, a great form rugby league tackle, and absolutely shot at her. And then the following day, we saw flares in the field, a streaker tackling a security guard, so getting a little bit of vengeance, I suppose, on the 4 security guards in the name of Fireproof Australia, who also shut down the Sydney Harbour Bridge during the week to get whatever message they're trying to get across, other than being annoying. And in the NBA, we saw several stoppages. As well, a lady glued herself to the floor. Someone chained themselves to the net, and a lady in the EPL as well. Monks, have you got the story?
Yeah, some supporter zip tied themselves to the goalpost. So zip tied themselves around the neck to the goalpost. Looks like they're protesting against, I guess, oil.
Against oil, yeah.
Yep.
Just stop oil.
Just stop oil. So yeah, security guards had to come in and cut the zip ties and carry him off the field.
There you go.
Yeah.
Everton, Newcastle.
Yes.
Probably a riveting game as well.
It's probably a good place to tie yourself up against the goalpost there as well, because the ball never gets close when Everton Newcastle playing. So yeah, pretty safe spot to do it. So yeah, a joint mop to all the people that stopped the sporting events around the world to convey whatever political reason they had going across. And what happened to the old-fashioned streaker that would just get on the field, no political motivation, just get the kid off? There's the stunning footage of the lady on YouTube a few years ago, completely starkers, smacking a half volley, which goes into the goals. Miss those type of streakers, I think, rather than the politically motivated ones. So yeah, general moppery to all those that entered the playing arena during the week.
How much do you care about the handling of the security guards of pitch invaders?
Well, they're told to take the people down. There was a bit of backlash in Australia about the guy that absolutely poleaxed that lady. Maybe our friend Jarvo should take note that if he ever comes down under, there's
he walked out and they just walked him back off. So.
Yeah, there's
no, I did get hit the other week.
Oh, did he? Is he still
last month? Sorry.
Where was he invading then? Oh, Jarvo.
Let's have a look at this.
Jeez.
It looks like it was a rugby union match between England.
That was his own fault.
Yeah. Who hit him?
It was a security guy.
Secchi?
Yeah.
How did we miss this? March 14.
Not sure.
About a month ago.
Bro, it's rugby. That's why I missed it.
True. Well, rugby over in the Northern Hemisphere is still actually, it's quite big here. Yeah. It's just over in New Zealand more so than Australia.
Yes.
There you go. Java.
But yeah.
Absolutely cut in half.
Yep.
Fucking Java. Jesus Christ. On that note, let's move forward.
Yeah. Well, I think the final point is if you enter the pitch, you're fair game for security.
It seems like that, yeah.
Yeah, because like we said, if you, though they went over too heavy-handedly in the basketball game, if you're running on an NFL pitch, or if you're in worse, like if you're in South America or Africa, you're going to get handed it to you. So, yeah, if you're going on a pitch, you expect to be get whacked.
I suppose the argument for security guards is there's a duty of care there as well. You don't know what they've got on.
Yeah, that's true.
What they're going to do, so you've got to try and shut that down pretty quickly, I suppose.
Yep. Plus you get on the news if you lay out some birds. So.
And
5 minutes of fame never goes.
Like a mop, long and skinny and folded in half pretty comfortably this week by the security guards. Okay, cricket. Joe Root has stood down, fell on his sword, some might say. As England Test captain, has been pretty much the only England player recently to make any runs. But unfortunately, England has only won one of their last 17 games. Root has announced that he is stepping down. He will stay, obviously, in the side and just focus on his batting, which he's been doing a pretty good job of. I think in the current World Test Championship, he is about 400 runs ahead of second, who's Usman Khawaja at the moment. So definitely not affecting his ability with the bat. Although, we were speaking about it a few weeks ago, the English media, they wanted Joe's head.
Yes,
Essentially, very upset with the performances that the boys have been putting out. Notably, just losing in the West Indies to a far less fancied side in the West Indies. We all know what happened down here over our summertime. 4-0 was only 1 wicket away from getting whitewashed down here, 5-zip. And before that, a series lost to India and in England. So a pretty fruitless sort of 18 months for the English cricket team. Boys, what are our thoughts around
Well,
this?
it didn't help his chances as well. They're also on the bottom of the ICC table, which
10th. Yep.
Which you know, for England is not where they want to be. They want to be competing in the top 4. So I think we talked about it last week with the writing on the wall, but there was no better options. And I don't think that's changed in a week.
No, nothing has changed in a week. No one has cemented their spot as a forerunner to overtake the position. Ben Stokes most likely
which is what we said.
Yeah, will be the replacement.
It makes the most sense. Good friends, of course, with Root. But whether
it makes sense, kind of like we know.
But he's only just come back as well.
He's only just come back from extended period off. He's fiery. We like that about Ben Stokes, I suppose. In that he wears his heart on his sleeve, but is that the captain quality that you want? Maybe he's passionate. He's very passionate, whereas Joe can sometimes seem a little bit disinterested at times. But considering Ben has been in the news for the wrong reasons throughout his career, and Joe essentially had a squeaky clean kind of record. He also captained the most games for England out of anyone in Test history, which is pretty unbelievable considering their long Test history, and he's not really even that old.
31.
He's 31. Interesting. What have we done with our lives?
Started a podcast.
And his record up until this last 18 months was outstanding. He finishes, I think, with 28 wins, 11 draws, 27 losses off the top of the head. So to think that they've only won 1 out of their last 17, if you look at his record 18 months ago, 2 years ago, it was an unbelievable Test record. Is it his fault that England have gone on this run when he's making all the runs? Is it his captaincy that's let them down? No, I've said it before on the podcast. I think it's the other sticks that aren't helping out. Their bowling's been pretty good. Outside of himself, Bairstow's made runs a few times. Stokes made a few runs, but has been out of the side for quite some time. It's the rest of that top 6 which haven't stood up at the Test level. Yeah,
I think... when he came into the captaincy, he probably had some of the back end of some of the guys there with their career and they really haven't got anything to come through new. And you can see they're a young team that definitely need new guys to come in, new blood to come into that team and build around. And you want, your Archer, Stokes and Root is kind of your veterans there to then help guide those guys come in. But they're just not there at that kind of space yet. And all those other guys there are kind of, above average in that squad. You wouldn't be pinning them as captain. And Stokes makes the most sense from a talent perspective, but like you say, you're going to make him the face now, and all that scrutiny that Root has been struggling with, you're going to get and give on Ben Stokes
for a guy who's just come off a mental health break.
Yeah, exactly. Who's passionate. Yeah, definitely. And when the results aren't going their ways, it's not going to be a great. Result for them. So
it's pressure, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's pressure position to take over. We all know down here what the Australian Test captain, the scrutiny that they come under. I can't imagine what it's like in India. It'd be like Australia or England on steroids.
Yeah, well, England for cricket for the English fans is definitely one of those sports they know they're good at. Well, hope they're good at. All the others, not so much.
That's a bold statement, even around cricket.
I know. I'm just getting stuck in English fans. It's all right. So it is going to be an interesting way they go forward. So that only leaves now Kane Williamson as well as the Fab Four.
Yeah, Fab Four.
As the captain.
So Coley, Smith, and Root all
for kind of very different reasons.
Yep.
So it's Kane Wilson probably looking over his back now, just make sure nothing's coming his way.
I don't think he's got too much to worry about.
He shouldn't. But then, we said the same about the others.
They did lose to Bangladesh a few months ago.
The results are important, and if you go on a 1-17 streak, you don't last very long.
Have you seen the way that the Poms do their odds? It's different to the way that we do it and the way to the Yanks. They do it as fractions. So the fractions, they kind of make sense when it's to 1. They've got Ben Stokes listed as 8 to 15, which you may as well just say 2 to 1.
Yeah.
He's a $2 favourite to be the next captain. Outside of that, they had Sam Billings at 8 to 1, which I thought was kind of interesting considering he's only played a handful of tests. We saw him come into the side in the Ashes, played quite well, has a lot of white ball experience.
Is he the youngest out of the options?
No, I think, he's not even on the... He's the youngest out of the options that I've got listed there, out of these top 6. Yes, he is the youngest. There was a little bit of chatter around Ollie Pope being...
he's been in and out of the sides.
Yeah, but being earmarked as a future captain. He's not 24, so remember how we were talking about, maybe Rohit Sharma passing on to Rishabh Pant or something like along those lines.
Maybe that's what they think with Stokes.
That could be similar. That could be a similar kind of thing here, getting ready for someone that is really young. The other names in the hat were all old guys, especially Stuart Broad, who is listed at 10 to 1. He's close to retirement, but has a wealth of experience under his belt. James Vince is 10 to 1, who hasn't been in the side. Moeen Ali, who plays a fair bit of Test cricket, is also 10 to 1. And I thought Johnny Bairstow a little bit long at 12 to 1. I thought he may have a sniff at this role. Again, all these guys kind of come, second fiddle to the obvious favourite being Ben Stokes.
Yeah.
The other, this was something that I hadn't considered and came up in a group chat as well, is Owen Morgan, who is the white ball captain. He hasn't played a test match in 10 years. That's a little caveat there. But if they wanted to go for an India and unify and have someone lead, just for the time being, the problem is, I suppose, with Owen is he doesn't play much red ball cricket, and his test average from the 10 years ago where he only played a handful of tests, I think maybe 16 off the top of the head. He averaged 30 with the bat. So a little bit lackluster. However, current English guys, that's pretty much that's all you need to get in the side unless your name's Joe Root. Yeah, exactly. That's par. That's par for the Poms at the moment. So they're kind of all the candidates. Obviously, Ben Stokes, the favourite, but wouldn't surprise me if something a little bit left field comes in, just given the varied history that Stokes has had on and off the field. We had the incident, with the assault a few years ago where he had to take time away from the game because of that. The mental health break and the rest of it. Obviously, a very talented cricketer, one of the best all-rounders in the world. But is he in the right headspace right now to take on, a high-pressure role in being the captain of England? Who knows? It's going to be an interesting one going forwards.
Yeah, and chat, of course, is hating on all the English players we have been mentioning. So, but I don't think there's many options. I think that's the problem. And it's not just the captains wise; it's for the team. Like they're just struggling with talent.
And then it goes back to why is all this pressure been put on Joe in the first place? Yes, you could question some of his more defensive tactics, sort of looking to play for draws more so than being aggressive and going for wins. Yes, you could be critical of that. But the guy carries that side. Like, without Joe Root,
Well, Ben Stokes wasn't there. He was the only one.
Exactly right.
If you're picking the 11, you're just like, well, we'll start Root.
Root was the only guy. Yeah, and then I suppose on a green swinging deck, you'd have Anderson and Broad kind of listed. Although they do like to chop and change with their bowlers. Root was the only guy that every single test match would be the first name on the paper.
True.
So it's a puzzling situation. We've seen this kind of carousel and circus down here of late after Sandpaper Gate and the Dick Pic Gate with Tim Payne and Root. It's kind of nothing off the field, or I suppose Sandpaper Gate was on the field, but it was something against the spirit of the game. This is just performance based, and it's a strange one in that he's by far and away their most talented cricketer and has produced for them on the field in spades over the last few years, but they're just not getting the results.
Yeah, and whether some of that's his captaincy, and that's what the boys in the chat are talking about. It's like maybe he wasn't, strong enough as a leader or strong enough with his strategies or the, field positions, et cetera, whether that was what let them down and what maybe led to some of their losses. But
Yeah,
I also don't think
just forget the 1,150 runs that he's made in the current ICC WTC.
I think he did everything he could with the
and
bat.
And the calendar year that he had last year, and all kinds of records, and the average in the mid 60s over the last few years.
He does need.
Forget about all that. He wasn't a great leader. I just think
He's still on the
he's
squad.
best
He's not getting dropped. So.
No, but I just think he's the best that they had.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
And
The best they still have,
Yeah,
arguably.
yes, also
Yes.
still agree. Yeah,
So-
and there does take 10 other
Yeah.
blokes to win a cricket match.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So it'd be
Anyway.
interesting to see what happens. We've got a fair few guys now that are going to be in the same boat. We just spoke about the other three from the Fab Four. Kohli, has only just sort of stepped down from the captaincy of India, so it's a little bit too early to tell how that will affect him going forward. Smudge has been out of the role for quite some time.
He's semi de facto at the moment when Cummins gets it. You can see it. It's like
You can definitely
he's definitely getting some words in there.
That's
but,
right.
Well, do you
That's-
reckon Kohli in our route will have a similar sort of role as Smith as well? Like,
You'd
will
say
he
so.
still sort of de facto,
He's got the experience.
still leading a team, just not the face, I guess.
Yeah, I think on the field, like in terms of setting the field, they both will have had a role. It's just more so about facing the press and doing all the off the field stuff and taking the responsibility. But yeah, poor Joe Root. I feel sorry for him. It's pretty unusual that you'll hear those words come out of my mouth, that I feel sorry for an English cricketer. But in this instance, I kind of do. Look, if you go back and look at some of those decisions through the Ashes, and especially some of the ones in India, you could see a few holes in the captaincy. Our mate Ian Chappell loved to harp on about how shit Joe Root was as a leader.
Yep.
But when you're the only person, that's actually performing for your country, at least with the bat, I do think he's been dudded a little bit here, and it's a little bit of death by media.
Well, final point on that. Did he walk, or do you think he was going to get pushed?
I think it was the old tap on the shoulder. Yeah, I think the old, let's have a private meeting. You can write your statement. I think it was him falling on his sword, being asked by the board to do so.
Yeah, I agree. If he wasn't going to do it, he was
Yeah.
probably going to get shoved.
Yeah, he was pretty adamant that he was happy to keep on staying on as captain in short term, and then so it must have been they just tapped him on the shoulder.
How keen was Joe Root to be captain in the first place?
I imagine you'd be thrilled if
I would have thought so too.
Coming in to the role after a really strong period in English cricket history with Cook and Strauss just making runs wherever they went, Broad and Anderson in their prime.
He did come into it at a good time, I think, as well. Which
exactly.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, with the numbers, he's still finishing. He's 42% including draws, but he actually still has more wins than losses, despite their terrible performances over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So he actually still finishes with a reasonable record, and then most games captained. Like we said, how old's English cricket? 150 years, and he's finished as the most capped skipper. It's one of those things, isn't it? You remember the end of Ricky Ponting's captaincy and the end of his career, and everyone turning on him. People do have short memories, but I suppose the other argument is, look, you're the leader, you're the one that has to be responsible, and at the end of the day, you need results. So that's what it's come down to. We'll keep an eye on it as it unfolds in the coming weeks. But it looks like Ben Stokes most likely takes over, or one of those names that we did mention.
Yep. Australian cricket? Australia. Well, one quick note on the Australian cricket.
This is big news.
Yeah, big news.
Ronald McDonald.
Yeah, Ronald McDonald. Andrew McDonald, the Australian, the interim coach, now becomes the full-time coach. So he will continue on. I guess
4 years.
Got a big deal, of course.
That was surprising for me that they went for so long on someone who is really just been a caretaker. He's been involved in the system for a long time.
Yeah,
essentially,
obviously been around the boys, which I think is what. Cummins. Cummins, I think, gets a lot of the stick for the one that kind of made the push and did the mutiny to get rid of one coach to get another.
The mutiny in Cricket Australia.
Yeah, so it is what it is. He's the favourite. He's been what's picked. So that's what they'll go with going forward.
Apparently, I've got an Indian doppelganger, and that's pretty good, actually. His eyes are a little bit half closed, a lot like mine tend to be at the end of an Esky podcast. That's on our Twitter. We might have to repost that. Thanks very much, Ricken. He's in the RCB video.
Yeah, he's in ads. And
that's
all the
good. That, when I'm looking at someone and I'm thinking, geez, that's me in a fun shirt after a few beers. That's very good. Well done, Ricken. We will repost that on our socials. Thank you very much. I've had a few doppelgangers on this show. Some better than others, I must say. But that's class. We'll put that on our socials. Well, speaking of doppelgangers, and back to Andrew McDonald, very easy nickname with the Ronald McDonald.
Yep.
When do we play Sri Lanka? Is that June? Can you chase up those?
We looked at that last week. I think it was June.
So IPL,
or it was like late May. It was like
IPL will wrap up. The boys that are playing county cricket will get a bit of exposure over there, and then I suppose that's going to be his first proper test coaching experience after being essentially the caretaker in Pakistan. Those tests are
late June, early July,
29th of June, and just the two test matches there in Sri Lanka. Yep. Look. You don't want to shit too much on Sri Lanka, but we should go over there and win those tests. We have had a very streaky recent form in Asia, even against Sri Lanka, who have sort of been struggling.
Will they take a full strength squad?
They have to.
Well, all the cricket they're playing currently, would they want some rest during the winter?
No, it's test. No,
take over Australia.
It's test cricket. I think how we saw in the ODIs against Pakistan, where a lot of your Warners and Cummins and Smith didn't play. I think that is kind of the way that they approach some of the white ball cricket that's not tournament cricket these days. Okay, boys, you can have a rest here. I don't think they'll approach test match cricket as. You can have a rest. Whoever is healthy and available, they will want to pick their best 11 and try and win that series.
Well, it's important for the table. Like, we want to win
exactly.
that series.
Yeah, we're currently on top there. Monks, you got the numbers there for us?
Yep. So we're currently on top, as you said, at 72 points, 5 wins, 3 drawn matches over 2 series. Mm-hmm. Behind us, we've got South Africa sitting on 60 points, 5-1. 2 loss over 3 series. Mm-hmm. Then behind them, we've got India, who's on 77 points.
Yeah, so it goes off the
percentages. Yeah,
percentage, because India's played more cricket than us at the moment.
Yeah. And then behind them, they've got Pakistan, then Sri Lanka, New Zealand, West Indies, Bangladesh, and then England, as we mentioned, right at the bottom.
Yeah, can you just repeat that last three?
West Indies.
Yeah,
Bangladesh.
Who are ahead of Bangladesh. Who are ahead of England.
Ahead of England.
Blimey, that's grim, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is grim. Andrew McDonald confirmed going forward. Not a massive surprise there. He had kind of been groomed as to be the next leader. Obviously, the playing group like him. It'd be interesting to see how we go. I suppose the main takeaway is 4 years, massive contract. A lot can happen in cricket in 4 years. A lot can happen in the world in 4 years.
Well, you'd think Cummins would still be captain after 4 years. With his age, and that they'd be keeping that squad together for most of that. So I think they've kind of now got all their ducks in a line of what they wanted, and now they just got to play good cricket and get the results.
Ricken has just mentioned as well. We do play India. Can you look at when that is? That it starts after that Sri Lanka series, I believe. Tell you what, I'm a bit scared.
It's in India.
India has been very difficult. The last time we were over there, we didn't get embarrassed. We won a test and played okay, but it's gonna be a difficult one considering India's domination of the Border Gavaskar Trophy in recent years, and just that depth that we always talk about, that Indian depth. It is a little bit concerning.
We've got to take all the spinners with us.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a big one for Swepston.
Didn't get great turn at Pakistan, but
no, different decks though.
Very different.
Yeah, those decks seem to be batting paradises, which we don't tend to see over in India.
Sorry, just bring it up
Just talk amongst ourselves, do you think?
Yeah.
Well, while he's looking up Indian cricket, do you want to start on Indian cricket?
I'm just in a circle now.
You're going around. Monkey, your game has dropped off for a little bit recently. I don't know what's going on. Jamie Vernon would not be happy with this amount of research.
Jamie, bring it up.
There we go. Ricken's on all over it.
He's
Date's
all
not a
over
mouse. Date's not a mouse. Thanks, Ricken. You want to move to Australia? We've got a job for you. The pay's pretty shit. You get
You guys are getting paid?
you get 2 beers and abused on the internet. That's what you get paid in.
So to finish it up, it's after the T20 World Cup, probably start next year.
Perfect. There we go. This is a massive year in cricket, isn't it?
Yeah, very big.
We've only just come out of one T20 World Cup, obviously delayed many years because of the COVID, and now we go straight back into the T20 World Cup on our home soil in October.
And if you're Pakistan after what they did against Australia in their T20, you'd be very confident going into that series.
Indeed.
So, yeah. Speaking of T20,
IPL.
Can I use that segue now?
That'll work. The biggest T20 competition is into its 3rd week. I'll quickly run through the games that have happened in week 3 of the IPL since our last episode. The Rajasthan Royals had a win by 3 runs against Lucknow Super Giants, who have been playing pretty good. Old Lucknow. Shimi Hedi, I should say, 59 runs. He belted 6 sixes to get Rajasthan to 6 for 165 in that one, and Lucknow went really close, a bee's dick away from winning that one. It was the bottom order actually, led by Big Puppy Marcus Stoinis. Then they just missed out on chasing the runs down there. Match 21, we saw Sunrisers Hyderabad actually give the Gujarat Titans their first loss of the tournament. Gujarat made 167, 50 not out for Hardik Pandya. And then Sunrisers went out and an absolute just did it with ease, with Kane Williamson making 57, Abhishek Sharma 42, and Nicholas Puran some great hitting at the end, 34 off 18. Sunrisers, we shit on them a little bit after the auction, but they're going okay. We'll get to their second game in just a second. The Super Kings, the last year's defending champions, they got off the donut.
Finally woke up.
And they did it in style. 4 for 216, if you don't mind. This was the match where Shuvan Dubé went nuts. 95 off 46. He smacked 8 maximums in that innings. Robin Udhappa, 88 there to get the Super Kings to
50. Well,
to 4 for 216.
They scored well.
Yeah. How about this? Akash Deep, poor fella. He got hit to the deep. 4 overs, 58 runs, none for 58. He went for 14 and a half and over. Well done there, Akash Deep. Absolutely got flogged all around the park. Although I must say RCB did do a pretty good job of chasing the runs. They got to 9 for 193, so not absolutely annihilated.
It probably didn't help in that Faf and Kohli got nothing.
Yeah. Well, we'll look at the top there. Faf 8, Kohli 1. Maxi smacked 26 off 11. Shabazz Ahmed 41 off 27, but it was too little too late there from Royal Challengers Bangalore. Punjab Kings, they're having a better season compared to last year. They beat the Mumbai Indians, who aren't 0-5. 0-5, bottom of the table, Mumbai Indians at the moment. I think that will be much to the delight of everyone in India that lives outside of Mumbai. Mumbai famously getting to the Mumbai area there in Maharashtra. I hope I said that right. Getting to host all of the IPL at the moment. So they're running it out of the Wankhede and Brabourne and Pune, which is just inland from Mumbai. For our Australians here who don't have their Indian geography down to a T, you can listen to the Esky and get a kind of mixed up version from me. But in this one, we saw Punjab go out and make 198 off the back of 70 off 50 from Shikhar Dhawan, 52 from captain Mayank Agarwal to get them to 198. And Steam's little fella, Baby AB, he just fell 1 run short of his 50, but he smacked 49 off 25 balls, 4 fours, 5 sixes for the 18-year-old. He's going to be an absolute superstar. And Mumbai, unfortunately, fell short and couldn't get the runs and stay 0 from 5. With that team, it's really look, a team that has Rohit Sharma, Ishan Kishan, Baby AB, Sky, Kyron Pollard, Jasprit Bumrah. Yeah, to be 0-5, geez. It just goes to show, though, that the IPL doesn't matter. Every team is a good team, and even with a star-studded lineup like that, it doesn't necessarily guarantee you success in the IPL. Gujarat continued their winning ways with a win over the Rajasthan Royals with 87 from captain Hardik Pandya, not out to get them into the top of the table. 5-1 they currently sit. Sunrisers beating Kolkata Knight Riders in match 25. This was the return of Aaron Finch to Kolkata, and he just looks in all sorts, doesn't he? He just can't make runs. I think you said he's broken during the week, and it seems that way. He's so conscious of not getting out LBW that he's playing all kinds of...
His footwork's...
his footwork's shot, and he's charging blokes so he doesn't get caught.
Doesn't get anything on his pads.
Doesn't get caught in front. Doesn't get trapped LBW or clean bowled. I do really hope for Finch to come back and make some runs. We'll see what happens. Anyways, in this game, it wasn't just about Aaron Finch's continued failure. We did see Nitish Rana make 54 for the Knight Riders, getting them to 8 for 175. With T Natarajan 3 for 37 with the ball. And then Sunrisers did it pretty comfortably with the bat off the back of Rahul Tripathi, 71 of 37. I did see someone on Twitter, can't remember who, an ex-Indian player saying Rahul Tripathi is the most talented Indian player that hasn't been capped yet for India. So that's a big call.
That's a big call.
Considering, the depth that we always talk about. And Aidan Markram getting amongst the runs there for Sunrisers with 68 off 36
so
there.
Cummins went for 40 in that one. I just want to throw in a stat there from Ricken. Cummins has gone for 144 runs in 3 matches. So
he's getting absolutely pasted. And it's weird, isn't it? Because we're talking about a guy who in Test cricket averages 21 with the ball, has had one of the most impressive starts to a red ball career ever. It just shows you the stark difference between red ball and white ball cricket. His change up is probably lacking. It doesn't really have that good slower ball that guys can't pick. Interesting considering.
Hazelwood, as like a comparison, been doing quite well with his form. So, but he of course has played a lot in the T20 over there in the IPL. So. Yeah, well, not to say that Cummins hasn't. Like the same thing. They've definitely played.
It's also 3 games. Also 3 games. Yes, he's been pasted. Will he work it out? I hope so. I don't think he's getting dropped from that team anytime soon. And as we spoke about last episode, his ability with the bat is improving year by year. So interesting that essentially our best bowler in the red ball format is really struggling over there. But the IPL, it's a different can of fish.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of big hitters over there. Yeah.
Can of worms.
I think you open a can of worms. I don't think that's correct there. I don't
know where the worms come in, but
I don't know.
Barrel of fish. You're shooting a barrel of fish.
I don't know where this analogy is going, anyways. Whether it's fish or
it's not
worms,
Italian food.
Worms
you're not too sure. You're the young fella, the Indian guy you just mentioned,
Tripathi.
Rakim did confirm he has the most runs for an uncapped Indian player in the IPL.
There you go.
So doing a good job.
Yeah, great. More excellent Indian cricketers that are young. Yeah, great. Can't wait. Batch 26 at the Brabourne, we saw Mumbai Indians horrible run continue as they went down to Lucknow Super Giants. KL Rahul batted an absolute stellar knock in this one, 103 off 60, the second ton in the IPL this year following Joss Butler's ton, leading the Super Giants to 199. Good for KL Rahul as well because we had seen him struggle a fair bit in the first few games, struggling to get runs. So the monkey off his back for the time being, but the monkey still on the back of the Mumbai Indians, mate. That monkey is just stuck in there and it's picking out little things. The monkey's well and truly on the back of the Mumbai Indians. They're 0-6, aren't they?
Yep.
Oh, 0-6.
0-6.
Pretty hard to come back from that. It's a 10-team league. We say that any team can get beaten.
How many matches they play?
They play everyone twice, 18. So They've got 12 games left. You'd think they'd have to go pretty close to winning out.
Yes. Yeah, they've lost a third already. So.
Yeah. I did have a look at the odds on our good unofficial friends at Sportsbet to win the whole thing. They're in the hundreds to 1 now. So I think like we've said before, them and the Super Kings are two of the most decorated franchise. Well, the two premier franchises in the IPL, both looking unlikely to be playing finals cricket this tournament.
I got a correction. It's 14.
Oh, it's 14.
So even worse. So
they're in big trouble.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So you only play some teams twice this year, which will be less cricket than last year because they.
But is it more games because they've got the two more teams? So overall, it ends up being more cricket.
No, it's overall, it will be, but it's the same because in an 8-team comp, they all play each other twice. It's 14 games.
Yes.
So they've
kept the 14 games, but they've added 2 teams, which adds them another.
Which means you don't play everyone twice.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you've added an extra 28 games in total to the season with that extra 2 teams there.
I don't know if that's correct maths. Anyways, quick maths is something that's been banned from these podcasts, and it always tries to weasel its way back in, doesn't it? It tries to weasel its way back in. Thank you, Rick. And they're in 2 groups. So if you're in a group, you play everyone in that group twice, and then everyone in the other group once. We've got it. We're all over it. Bang bang. Thank you, ma'am. It's easy following a tournament that happens in the middle of the night for us, isn't it? It's showing now live on the internet. Let's go to match 27. Our Delhi Capitals beaten by the Royal Challengers Bangalore. RCB got off to a shit start in this one. Again, Faf and Virat Kohli not in the runs. Anuj Rawat, first ball quacker.
Maxwell, though.
Yeah, Maxi went well, 55 of 34. And Dinesh Karthik absolutely went nuts at the end of the inning, 66 of 34 for him.
I'd say when we get to looking at the batsman, Maxwell will be up there in that list. He would be the highest placed Australian.
Definitely the highest placed Australian. I don't know if he's in the top 5. He hasn't
10? I think
maybe in the top 10.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to the stats in just a second. Speaking of Australians that have made runs, Davey Warner made 66 in this one, but it wasn't enough. The Caps went down. They're sitting 2 and 3, I believe. Out of the top 4 at the moment. 28th match, we saw Sunrisers getting another win against the Punjab Kings. The Sunrisers Hyderabad coming away 7-wicket winners in this one. Liam Livingston, the high-paid Pom, with 60 for Punjab, getting them to a total of 151. They were bowled out. Some great bowling from Bhuvneshwar Kumar, 3 for 22, and Umran Malik, 4 for 28. And then Sunrisers cruised to victory again. Tripathi, 34, Adam Markram, 41, Nicholas Pooran, 35. Those 3 have all been very good with the bat for Sunrisers. Going into the 29th game, in which the Titans got another win over CSK. This was the David Miller show in the second innings. CSK made 5 for 169 off the back of 73 from Ruturaj Gaikwad. And David Miller, after a very ordinary start from Gujarat, with Shubman Gill and Vijay Shankar both getting quackers, they were absolutely up shit creek. David Miller goes out and goes, bam, bam, thank you, ma'am, 94 of 51, getting them home and to keep them on top of the table at 5 and 1. Was there a game overnight? That's 29th. No, that's us up to speed. Tonight's match, as our computer just ticks over, Rajasthan Royals take on the Kolkata Knight Riders, and we are approaching the halfway mark of the IPL.
It's interesting as you went through those results, the chasing team, most often than not, was the losing team in that. So
yeah, interesting.
Because I thought in previous years it'd been the other way around. But
we definitely saw it last year, but different conditions. Obviously, when they went to the Emirates.
Last 2, the chasing team won, but then besides that.
Let's have a look. Batting first. Yeah, I think there has been a trend of the team batting first slightly having an advantage, but as you go back earlier in the tournament, yeah, no real pattern, I don't think. We'll do the numbers maybe. We'll do the numbers for the next episode.
Yep.
Jot that down in your diary, boys. Monks, you've got the stats leaders. I think Josh Butler still leads us for run scorers, does he not?
Yes, he does. Let me just bring it up on the big screen.
You're still at top. What's he got? 40? run lead, yes.
Yeah, 40-run lead over KL Rahul. So Joss from 5 knocks has 272, averaging 68, striking at 152.
No Aussies in that list in the top 10.
Also leads the tournament for sixes with 18. KL Rahul, that 100 really shot him up the leaderboard into second with 235. So you have to think with his first 5 knocks before that 100 had only made about 100 in those first 5 knocks. Hardik Pandya, he's really relishing his role as captain. He's third on the list there with 228. Pretty handy average there, 76.
Yeah.
He's only been dismissed 3 times. Shivam Dubey, who had that big 95 knot for CSK this week, he's fourth with 226. And then the only foreigner in the top 5 there is Liam Livingston from Punjab Kings with 224.
I didn't realise Josh Butler was a local.
Good point. Yeah, Josh Butler. Make it 2 poms. Yeah. Well done. I'm glad you picked up on that.
I had to.
Where do we have to go to get an Australian?
Maxwell was...
David Warner's there.
Davey Warner,
26th.
26th has only played the 3 games though.
Maxi, I thought, would have been up there.
No, Maxi, because he got married, he's only played 3 games as well, I think. Because he wasn't with
45.
Yeah, that's right. So he's outside of that 55. Has done bugger all. Actually.
That young fellow I mentioned before, he's 7. So
Tripathi. Rahul Tripathi, 205 runs, average 51, striking 173.
Yep.
What about bowling?
We switch over to bowling.
Yeah, Yuzvendra Chahal there from Rajasthan on top with
new number 1.
with 12 wickets, tied with T. Natarajan,
Yadav was there
who
last
both
week,
have 12. Then Kuldeep Yadav, 11, Avesh Khan, 11, and Wanindu Hasaranga, 11 for the Sri Lankan spinner there. Table, if you wouldn't mind, we've sort of already alluded to it, but yes, Gujarat do sit first, 5 and 1, 10 points. Out in front of Lucknow Super Giants. How interesting that the 2 new franchises are 1 and 2 there on the IPL table. Then RCB and Sunrisers round out the top 4, and then we go down to Rajasthan Royals and Kolkata and Punjab, all on 6. Our Delhi Capitals, just the 4 points there, 2 and 3.
2 wins.
And then CSK and Mumbai Indians in 9th and 10th, respectively.
Maybe that's why the Caps don't want to talk to us at the moment.
Because they're not winning.
They're not winning games. It's like, we don't hear from Australia fans.
I do need to give them a message, our friends from Delhi. I believe next Sunday there's an 8 p.m. game our time, so it's the afternoon game over there. So that should be a good viewing time for us, rather than the middle of the night kind of format that we do have to cop here most of the time.
But it's interesting. What is it? 11... No, with 12 games they've played, the Super Kings and Mumbai Indians have only won 1 game. So.
Yeah, nuts. Out of the 2 most decorated franchises. Yeah. Some good yarn there coming through in the comments.
Right, yeah.
A lot of green ticks. Doesn't look much like my multi-slips, that's for sure.
That's hilarious. You've been doing all right the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, tell everyone.
Only been losing by 1 leg or something.
Put together a few and put them together in the NRL, the Rugby League.
Wait. Before we move on to that, I'm going to redeem myself.
You fucked up.
Great segue.
Beautiful segue. It couldn't wait. It couldn't wait.
It couldn't. I'm going to redeem myself. So
redeem
that
yourself.
Australia-Indian test, while no dates have been announced, it is going to happen in October, November this year.
Beautiful.
Which will happen concurrently to the T20 World Cup as well.
No.
Yeah, that's...
What? They can't do that. They can't do that.
Silly.
When does the T20 World Cup? It's meant to finish in November.
November.
It's got games through October.
And then the finals
in November. Well, we go to November, so I don't know if there'll be too many games after that.
That's just group stage.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sure, we'll chase that up. Yeah.
So I don't know if they will move the Indian test because it hasn't got set dates.
It'd have to be end of November for early December.
This is funny that you've gone for the cut me off on the great segue to go talk about some rugby league, and then have thrown out a very questionable call about co-current test matches with the World Cup.
I've got reports
From who?
I found a report.
Donald Trump.
News 18.
News18.com.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is Donald Trump's T20 World Cup. It's going to be the biggest, the best. It's going to be the best World Cup.
So how's your multi been going, Peps?
My multis have been going better than this fake news from news18.com run by Donald Trump.
Let's get stuck into the Aussie footy.
All right, let's go. Rugby league. Canberra Raiders, boys, they did a classic fade, losing Thursday night to the North Queensland Cowboys. Had a 12-0 lead at half-time. We mentioned it in the group chat. Do we see the faders of old? A few of the boys got on the live bet, paying $10 North Queensland at the half. And lo and behold, the Raiders have done a fade. Ricky's old halftime speeches of last year.
Dividends.
Yeah, came back. Jason Taumalolo, excellent for the Cowboys. I think we're starting to see shades of the old JT that was by far and away the best forward in the comp. He ran for 255 metres, if you don't mind, 29 tackles, 5 tackle busts. You got your wish. We saw a bit of Xavier Savage. Only 14 minutes. I don't know how much impact you can have in 14 minutes. He did run for 68 metres in that 14 minutes, which is pretty impressive. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, he came on as a replacement fullback. So that was the plan there. So he came in for Chance in the end. So probably not a great move, but he came on as a utility. Probably not, he's not a design hooker. So I don't know what they're going to do going forward there. I think I've been saying it the last couple of weeks. I'm unsure what Canberra are missing. I think I worked it out. They lack discipline. They lack leadership. So,
and Ricky went ham in the press conference on his own players, which is
he gave Savage a spray,
which is quite unusual because Ricky in the past we've seen him be very disgruntled with the media usually, and not being very happy with the questions that he's been asked, and usually having his players. Being in their corner, if you will, backing them into the ring. Whereas this was really, he was quite firm in saying that there was no excuses for that kind of play in the second half, and it'll be interesting to see how the playing group responds.
Yeah, well, and following on that, so. Because it is discipline. They turned the ball over so much. It was just a drop fest in the second half. They couldn't hold on to it. So, which
has been their problem. That was their problem in that first loss to the Cowboys. It's been their problem in the Manly game.
Yes. But Peps, but what is discipline? What's it a reflection of?
Leadership.
Coaching. Same thing.
Attitude reflect leadership.
Yeah.
Coach, which is kind of abrupt kind of version of the great quote from Denzel Frothinton in Remember the Titans.
Yes.
Yeah, yes and no. I don't think the coaching has to do with much drop ball out there. There seems to be it's just a problem of them holding on to the footy, isn't it?
Well, I think the drop ball comes from their lack of discipline, which I think is a coaching aspect. So there's a lot of talk about Ricky's head. If they can't get results, they need results. They've given up the most double-digit leads. They gave up 7 in the last, I think 18 months was the stat. The next closest was 4. So they definitely have tag. That's where they get the faders tag. A lot of that now is all looking back on Ricky. Of course, I do think they lack leadership, which either comes from him or I think they do need a quality veteran half in the run that squad around.
You reckon it improves when Fogarty comes back? We're still 6 weeks off that.
If that, he's week 14, so that's
week 6. Call it 8 weeks.
Yeah, and the season's done by that point if they don't win games between now and then.
True. The thing is, Schneider's been quite good.
Well, I think he's good, but he's not the leader. They need that leader that's going to pick them up when they do those errors and then not snowball, which is a problem. They get into a rut and it just snowballs and they just keep losing. So it is what it is.
It is what it is.
They had a good first half. They were very clinical in that, and then obviously they started tooting their own horn, and the Ricky halftime speech didn't go too well. And
Bunks, you got the stats there. What was that completion rate in the end? It's pretty abysmal again.
It was. So completion rate for Raiders was 72, 75 for Cowboys.
27 of 37. I'd be interested to see how much of that was in the second half.
Yeah.
Not that you'll be able to bring that up.
No, I haven't got the second half. The splits there. Negative plays. So Raiders had 12 to Cowboys 10. Cowboys conceded 9 penalties to Raiders 6.
Then 12 errors. If you're making an error, what's that? Every 6 minutes, quick maths. Pretty hard to win football games.
Yeah. I mean, the 12 to 10 kind of is reflective of the the score there. So Cowboys probably didn't play their best game either.
No.
Yeah, it's not great for the Raiders when you look at it.
Yeah, it was
some of those numbers.
very much the tale of two halves. So. Anyway.
What are the Cows now? They're 3-3. Started better than anyone kind of expected.
I think Deedon got injured in this.
Chase that up while we
have to
talk
check
about the
that.
next one. Yeah.
But we were bagging him as a 5'8" going into it. Like, he's probably a little undersized to do that, but his running game's been really good. So they've
Dearden's been good. Scott Drinkwater's been good, playing one in the last 2 games.
Valentine's kind of bounced back in the centres.
Yeah,
so
he had that good
big game in this one.
Yeah, that big try to get the go ahead for the Cowboys, where he showed that speed and that power, that finishing ability, dragging a few of the Raiders over the line for that try. Maybe the Cows aren't as bad as everyone was thinking at the start of the year.
Yeah.
Still early days, you start 3-3, you could finish 3-20, 21 or something. But I think credit where credit's due. The Cows looking a little bit better than most people had expected.
Yep.
South Bulldogs on Good Friday there, the first of 2 Good Friday games. We spoke ad nauseum last week about the sin bins and how they are affecting the game. This was a different one. This was for consecutive penalties given away. You could hear the referee saying, next one someone's going to go. So they were given the warning. Yep. Jeremy Marshall-King given the marching orders. I think there was 3 consecutive penalties, set after set after set. And then we saw South being able to capitalise, get a two tries in that 10 minutes, and never really looked like losing the game after that. Damien Cook, unreal, hat-trick, showing off his elite speed, looking like that Damien Cook of a few years ago where he was hands down the best number 9 in the country. Now, obviously, a lot of people like to sort of think Harry Grant might...
Happy Coruscant
is
in there as well. So
I think Cookie, when he's allowed to play that free-flowing game where he scoots and just, causes an absolute ruckus through the middle. Last week in the Dragons game, obviously I was watching that intently. He carved us up through the middle. I'd be interested to see, is he able to do this against your Melbournes and your Penriths? Because it's the Dogs and the Dragons the last 2 weeks that they've played, and he has been the best player on the field in both games.
It helps a lot when your pack is getting the meters, getting over the advantage line. So then it frees you up for your running game. If they're getting belted into the ground wrestled out of it, then the classic Melbourne techniques, then he can't play his kind of natural game, unfortunately. But did Latrell do his hammy in this game?
No, the game before. So it was in the Dragons game, and it's the hamstring that he had surgically repaired. The tendon,
8 weeks, I think, as well.
Tendon had come off the bone before the surgery. That's not the case with this tear, although it is an injury to that hamstring tendon. So Latrell will miss about 8 weeks. It kind of opens up the door for the second centre. In the State of Origin, which we will discuss shortly.
Yep.
Cookie, I did see one lucky punter, I think, put a 20 on a Cookie hat trick. I don't know what he was thinking of that. Maybe one of his mates, just saying, fuck it, get on the hooker to score a hat trick. He normally pays about 6 or 7 to 1 just to score one.
Yeah.
So hat trick would have been paying very nicely there. So congratulations to that punter there. South get West Tigers next week. You'd imagine they continue their winning ways. And Dogs and Broncos, an important game for those two sides who will be trying to stay ahead of the West Tigers in the race for the spoon. Friday night, Penrith put on a bit of a clinic against the Broncos. They're 6-0. Payne Haas missed this one for his suspension regarding the you stepped on my shoes, bro, with Albert Kelly. We saw Nathan Cleary back to his best. I think his 3rd game for the season. Sort of eased into it in the 2 games before this one. He was elite Nathan Cleary. In this one, 122 run meters, 4 try assists, and one of the best kicking games in the league, if not the best. Some good chat amongst the fantasy players who often Nathan Cleary will be the captain of a fantasy team, given his week in, week out consistency. In his absence this year, Payne Haas has been the captain, and I saw someone come up with the nice, I can see Cleary now, Payne Haas has gone. I saw a little bit of that kind of yarn getting around, and I thought that was That was well done. Also, that was my chat, so that's probably why I thought it was pretty good, because it came out of my own mouth, or out of my own fingers, if you will, onto the keyboard. That makes it 20 in a row for Penrith at home.
Yep.
They're looking like they're going to go on an absolute run. Again, it's a little bit like last year in that we're thinking Penrith, we're thinking Melbourne, we're thinking Smokies in your Parramatta's, in your Cronulla, but outside of about 6 sides, it's probably it's probably unlikely that anyone else is going to do any damage. I did mention the centre spot for the Blues. In game 1 will definitely be up for grabs. Tony Staggs had himself a night in a losing side here. He had 120 run meters, 8 tackle busts, put on a few big shots on his opposing number, and a meat pie as well. A little multi-win for me, thanks to Sportsbet. I want to talk about that centre position for Origin. I would have Staggs as the number 1 candidate to take that spot in the absence of Latrell. The other options, we've got Stephen Crichton, who's a really good shout. I think the best thing that Crichton has going for him is that it'll most likely be with Luai, Cleary, and Yo. So he will have that existing chemistry.
Toto might be playing outside him. So
it's outside him. We could go 5 out of 7 Penrith players. And if you want to go on form, it's probably not a bad idea.
Yes.
We might just put Penrith in there to play as the same side and see how they go. Campbell Graham is another big shout. It was a little bit quiet in the South Dogs game, but he was in the squad last year. He was 19th man, and Freddie loves him. He's a big-bodied centre. He's sort of purpose-made for Origin, whereas Crichton's a touch smaller, a little bit more silky and speedy. But Campbell Graham's a big fella. And Zach Lomax, the Dragons man, who has had a little bit of a down year, I think.
He's too much bants yesterday as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a second. A little bit too much. He's starting to get a little bit of a villain tag, I think. I think there's going to be a fair few people that love to hate on Zach Lomax. That's probably the 4 that have their name in the ring at the moment for that centre spot, with Latrell being out. Personally, I think Staggs is the number 1 option. Any thoughts around it?
Well, you've made a huge mistake. They're all centres. You've got to pick fullbacks.
You have to pick a fullback. Pappenhausen, welcome to the centres.
With Latrell and Turbo, they have the big bodies. Turbo, I think, is dealing with a bit of a knee injury as well. So
he's not playing, but he should be back.
He should be back for Origin. But, of course, he's had leg injuries in the past. So you hope for the best in his recovery. Same with Latrell. But, yeah, big-bodied centres. It wouldn't surprise me if Jack Whiten gets a run in the centres. He's in there in the squad.
Yep.
If you had to pick your number 1 specialist New South Wales centre, who would that be?
Specialist, as in a guy that plays centre week in, week out.
I think Staggs and Crichton are probably the 2.
Yep.
Staggs had a quiet first month of footy, and he's played his best games in the games Brisbane have lost. So that's a bit interesting, but. He's definitely one of the most talented centres there, from an athletic point of view. So, he could definitely be in there. I think it'd be probably between him and Crichton. And depending on who's healthy, maybe Jack gets thrown into that conversation, of course.
I'm glad you brought up Jack, because that's a really good shout. Been in the system, was playing.
Played a bit of centre for him.
Has started in the centre. Has also played off the bench for New South Wales. Has that rapport with Freddie and the boys already.
Well, you could play Jack essentially for New South Wales, because he could be, he's a utility essentially, could play anywhere besides prop. Like, he's got enough size to play.
He can play second row. He can play a lot. He could be an edge back rower.
And he's played in the back line before. So he gives you a lot of versatility. So I think you could keep him more as a bench player for that reason. But you never know. If we're still, another month and a bit away, 6 weeks away.
Yeah, about 6 weeks, I think.
Yeah, so plenty of people get injured in that time frame.
Sure,
I think I like all the names you picked in that.
It's a good problem to have. Good problem to have for Freddie and for Blues fans. Just an absolute plethora of talent, especially in the back line. It'd be interesting to see though who does get the nod. Yeah.
Did you want to talk about Nathan Cleary and the hip drop that wasn't a hip drop?
Well, you've just given your thoughts on it. It didn't look great.
It wasn't a hip drop. For me,
it was like a leg like a judo jiu-jitsu kind of
It
tackle.
was like it was an inside judo toss. Like that's 100% what it looks like. And that's
fined, but won't go to the judiciary. I think fair enough too.
Yeah, I would have thought maybe a week or two. He's
you love over officiating.
No, well, the bloody it wasn't Tino. There's a dude that's had a 5-match suspension for a hip drop tackle, so that's what he got. And it wasn't as bad as that, but also I don't think you'd want inside leg trips where you're like bending the knee that way and trying to toss a dude. Like it just looks bad. So if judo tosses are now illegal, if that's the precedent you want to set, well, fine. But maybe a week just to sit him down and say, like, we don't want that in the league.
This just in, Ronda Rousey on the coaching staff at the Penrith Panthers.
All right, we're doing arm bars, flying arm bars from here on out. But
it was bad because the league was involved, but I think the force as well. It wasn't a high
I call it I call it an inside leg trip. So to me, this tripping's bad.
Yeah, true.
Anyway. Cleary was never going to get suspended because he's Cleary.
Yeah, there's a bit of that as well. The old Joel Selwood in the AFL for comparison.
Yes. Well, pretty sure there was another game this weekend where someone else did something kind of similar, more of a drop than wrapped his leg around it, caught the guy's ankle, and I think there was a penalty from that.
Yeah.
But that being said, the guy who got tackled, like he was limping off the side of the field sort of thing.
And they're always going to take that into account, and we will discuss that when we talk about the AFL, is the outcome for the other player and whether or not that has to be taken into consideration when they go to the judiciary or when it's just a fine. Let's go through the Saturday games. Manly have won 4 on the trot, winning over the Gold Coast Titans 26-18. Hamuli Olakawatu double for the Sea Eagles, 121 run metres, 29 tackles, 5 tackle bust. DCE, his kicking game has been really good, especially in the last month where they have won these 4 on the trot. Do we see Manly making the top 4? I think we all had them around about that fifth and sixth.
Those 6 teams you mentioned before, they're one of the 6. So they'll be fighting for a top 4 spot.
But then in that as well, Penrith and Melbourne, hard to see them not finishing 1 and 2. 1-2. You know, maybe third at the worst.
They can play the grand final already.
So then, which you were saying last year, and then Melbourne dished up their worst game in 2 years in the prelim. Yeah. So that's why we have finals here, and it's not a league system like the EPL.
I know.
But good. Well, I was about to say good to see Manly performing well. No one really, outside of Manly supporters, likes to see Manly doing that well. Good to see them playing to their potential, I suppose, out of the fact that on paper they should be a good side. We didn't see it in the first 2 weeks, and now we are seeing it without Turbo as well.
Though, I think the last 3 weeks, though, have been sides that won't finish in the top 8. Because I think it was Titans, Bulldogs, and Raiders.
And there'd be one other one in their 4 on the trot. Interesting.
Knights.
Yeah, so they have to put those two. They've done that, so they're definitely showing they are a top 8 side. It's just where they finish in that top 8.
Well, interesting that they play Cronulla on Thursday night. Battle of the Beaches, 2 sides that are in pretty good form. Manly, who I suppose most people expected to be pretty good. Cronulla, a lot of people had them making the top 8 this year. Did we see them being as good as they have been? Maybe not. You know, they've been really, really good.
They've been overs from what we thought.
Exactly. So
Melbourne was a good kind of testing for them. To see where they're at.
And that's a great segue into the Storm and Sharks game. The Sharks actually didn't have a drop ball in the first half. They completed all of their sets.
Talk about coaching.
In the first half. Discipline. Craig Fitzgibbons, good on you. High quality game, this. But Melbourne's still too strong.
Yeah, and I think Finucane went off with HI ankle, didn't come back. I'm not sure when that was in that match, but of course that doesn't help losing him because I think he's de facto captain at the moment. I can't remember if what's the other second row's name in the Sharks?
Wade Graham.
He's
been out. Yeah. So I think Finucane has been the skip for them.
In the end, it didn't kind of matter because it was the Cameron Munster coming out party essentially. Everyone kind of forgot that Cameron Munster still is the best 5'8" in the comp. So
and pretty well. And no disrespect to Luai and Whiten and others. I think it's Munster and Daylight.
Yeah, exactly. If you're picking the Australian squad, you're putting Munster in 6 and Cleary in 7. Like that's just what you'd be doing.
Agreed.
Agreed. It's funny because back to his contract chat. That's all in the news. So he's just like, all right, I'm going to go out and have the best game of of the year so far.
Yep.
And kind of put that, respect to my name in that. So his 700K tag probably got bumped up to $1 million. Like the only reason he's
the whatever they're going to be Dolphins. Let's go with Redcliffe for ease at the moment.
Yep.
The North Brisbane Dolphins, the Sunshine Coast Dolphins, whatever they're going to be.
Somewhere on Queensland Beach Dolphins.
Miami Dolphins. They could throw 1.2, 1.3 at him.
Yeah, exactly. But I think if Melbourne want to keep him now, they got to up theirs because they're like, and
they lowballed him, which is
because the only reason they lowballed him is not because of his ability; it's because it's the nose candy. So
that's an excuse. That's an
excuse for them. But
that's an excuse for them.
It is also like they've kind of set that you're not really the face. Hughes, Grant. And Xavier Coates, like they were the big three, the big spiel. That's the future. So you're second fiddle to them. Essentially, is what's happened. And it's just like, well, this week he's going to go on. Well, I'm still Cameron Munster. I'm still the best 5'8" in the game.
Very good.
Do
you think it's a bit rude from Melbourne to lowball him the way that they did, considering what he's done for them at such a young age? He had to come up through, the Billy Slater, Cameron Smith, Cooper Cronk era, had to bide his time to get offered the money that he deserves. And they use it off-season discretion. Well, by the way, if that's an excuse to lowball everyone in the NRL, you could probably lowball about 85% of the NRL. That's just a number off the top of my head. No scientific backing behind that, of course.
Yeah.
Well, I think they did still do him a solid by paying him the 1.2 this year. So I was just like, hey, we're not going to tear your contract up, essentially, and you'll maybe take a haircut next year. But Munster's just like, well, I'm still young and I'm still super talented, so why should I have to do that? When considering a club like Dolphins potentially may, and that's his leverage. They can go, hey, they're going to offer me 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. I'll stay for $1 million.
I'll stay for $1 million. Yeah, I'll
do the deal.
I'll take 200 haircut to not leave, and I'll stay here and be good with Melbourne for the next 10 years, which no one in the fucking conference will see.
Pretty much. So
that's it.
There's some interesting chat on Redcliffe on the Dolphins, and we'll talk about that when we get to the Knights, I think. But,
yes.
That's probably enough on Melbourne.
Yeah, doubles to Justin Olam, who's been quite good of late. Dally M centre of the year last year.
Where does he fit centre-wise?
He plays with PNG. So
he's a PNG, but that's second nation, so he could play.
Yeah, it's a tier. Well, that's true. That's true. It's a tier 2.
And I think he's a New South Welshman as well.
Really?
Because I'm pretty sure Craig was a little annoyed that he didn't even get a look in last year. I think that's
a good shout. Yeah, because I had always considered him as not being eligible to play for the Blues. Yeah, tier 2 nation, Papua New Guinea.
If you fact checked it there for me, James, you got an answer? I thought you had something because you were laughing at us.
He's full Papuan.
Yeah, he is. Like he's definitely the best PNG player in the comp. But I think if he's come from PNG into Melbourne, he could probably pick where he wants to play. Or he won't have eligibility.
My understanding was that he's not eligible.
Yeah, maybe he is.
Going back to this chat from last year.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get the flow chart.
That's why I was laughing.
Get the flow chart going again.
Oh.
He's never in the discussion basket, if you will, for Origin. So my assumption is that
does it say where he played his junior footy?
PNG.
All PNG?
Yeah.
So
he literally came here by getting signed from PNG.
Because the PNG squad was in the Queensland Cup, so if he came, did he just come straight from PNG into Melbourne, or did he play Queensland? But I still think he still wouldn't be eligible because he's too old at that point.
Monks has got the career progression there, don't you?
Yeah, so 2016 he played in PNG, as you mentioned, so he signed with PNG Hunters in 2016 for the Queensland Cup season.
But he would have been an 18-ish by that point. So he doesn't need that 13 years stupid number.
Yeah, I'm not doing the maths on that. And then 2017, he signed with the Storm, played for Storm feeder club Sunshine Coast Falcons in the Intrust Super Cup. From the looks of it, he's played club. All his footy he's played in Australia has been either Queensland or for the Storm.
So. But he's not eligible.
No, he wouldn't.
You got to be before the 13th birthday is the rule. Yeah. He's come here as a 17-year-old, 18-year-old.
Yeah.
So you can put that cat to bed. Olam not eligible.
Yeah.
Because, he's one of the elite centres, specialist centres in the league.
Yeah. Well,
And
send it to you.
he has graduated from Papua New Guinea University of Technology with a bachelor's in applied physics.
You're joking.
No.
There you go. He's, Jesus, just an old applied physicist.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, the more you know. There you go.
The more you know,
Everyone's
yeah.
learnt something here on the Esky. Applied
it.
physicist. We
Yeah.
maybe get him here as the fourth panelist for some quick maths.
We need it.
Yeah. Might also be a little bit below a applied physicist level. Anyways.
Roosters Warriors?
Roosters Warriors. I didn't get this one. I was at Coogee, actually, Roosters territory, lying on the beach, going for a swim. April, weather turning it on. La Nina,
nice.
she's fucked off for a week, and the sun has come out, and it was very, very nice over the Easter long weekend. Shout out to Coogee Beach and the thousands of people there, all very well socially distanced. You're on the beach, etc., etc. Roosters slow start in this one. They did get the win in the end. Sammy Walker was quite good. He did have a meat pie. Was good with his goal kicking.
And I think that's the change, because we talked about the chemistry.
Yes.
Walker good. They've finally kind of found their feet, and I've got that side humming. So they've been winning games. Probably let the Knights in a bit close in this one.
Warriors.
Sorry, I've scrolled down. Warriors in this one. But the Warriors have been better with Sean Johnson back in the squad. So.
They have been. So that gives us the Chooks 4-2. It's starting to look like the team I think that everyone kind of expected them to
place?
be. Fifth, I think. Fifth.
Cronulla's third.
Fifth, yes, at the moment. They face a red-hot Dragon side next week, so I'm sure they're shivering in their boots to face them. On a more serious note, Warriors get Melbourne next week, so good luck with that one, boys.
Yes.
Let's talk about the Dragons. Yes,
Yeah.
the thing that everyone's been waiting for.
They got a win.
Second win since Barbecue Gate. 2 and
Yep.
2 and 13, I believe, since the barbecue at Vorney's. They get the win against the Knights down there at Wynn Stadium in the Gong. Interesting match, this one. Probably the big talking point was a little bit of a scuffle between ex-teammates Zach Lomax and Tyson Frizzell. Frizzell were outstanding in a losing side in this one. So the Dragons scored a try here. Tyson had tried to clean up a little kick in the in-goal, kind of made a mess of it. And the try was scored, and then Zach Lomax jumped on his back as if celebrating.
Said a few words with it, I believe.
That's right, as if celebrating with his ex-teammate. And then Frizzell just brings out like the old suplexed him, like absolutely ragdolled him, and a little scuffle. A little scuffle ensued, but not too much to write home about. No penalties, no sin binnings, nothing.
There's some pictures of Clemmer. It looked like he wasn't very happy with.
Clemmer came up after full time and had a few words for him.
Yeah.
To Zach?
To Zach, they had to sort of separate them.
Yeah, and it's a shame because he's so talented, but we are starting to see it a little bit. He's starting to become a player that guys love to hate. Is he being, just playing with passion, or is it just a little bit too much kind of banter and leading towards being idiocy? I think there's some words there from the Fox crew.
So Fox crew, well, I think even, they would have been the same crew as when I was watching it. They were sort of saying like, Frizzell's in his right to do what he did. He didn't know who was jumping on top of him. Lomax could have done his knee. Could have done anything to Frizzell if he hadn't been standing right. So they were sort of defending Frizzell, kind of giving Lomax a bit of stick.
Yep, stupidity, rubbish, the words used there by Greg Alexander and Vossi.
Yeah.
The old boys are always going to say that.
They do like saying that. Yeah, back in our day, you could punch someone in the face, but if you jumped on their back to celebrate a try, that's rubbish. That's idiocy.
Can't do that.
That's it. But I think that's just Lomax's nature. Like, you saw everything he'd...
he's a proper larrikin.
You saw him making fun of Dufty the other week.
What do you expect?
That's it.
He might have a career lined up for after footy, I think, because he seems to be a bit of a loose unit, a bit of a funny bloke. Hails from the town of Temora. That's where the wife family is from. Shout out Temora, New South Wales. Punches above its weight in producing NRL footballers.
It does.
I will agree. It's probably a little bit dumb. If you want to do it to someone, maybe jump on, say, Jake Clifford or Adam Clune's back. Tyson Frizzell, some of the biggest quads in the NRL. You are going to get ragdolled taking on Big Tice. Even
Maybe
if
just thought he could take it.
yeah, maybe. Anyways, head of the battle. I think we're probably over-analysing what's going on.
Yeah, like after the match, he just said it was a bit of friendly banter, like between old teammates. He didn't really think it through, I guess. Didn't really realize it was going to be that big of a deal. But he also said he wouldn't have wanted to get on Frizzell's bad side if he had known. So
no, you would not. Frizz himself actually had a really good game. He plays all 80 minutes. He's an absolute unit. I love him. He's on my fantasy team, and he may get me a win this week, pending the Parramatta West Tigers game. I'll tell you who was good for Newcastle, Kalen Ponga. How about this for a game line? 102 fantasy points, if you don't mind. 240 metres gained. 7 offloads. 7. A fullback's not meant to offload the ball 7 times. 10 tackle busts, a meat pie, a try saver, a try assist. His best game far and away from the year, and admittedly probably a little bit quiet this year. Given all the hoopla that's going around.
So what I want to know, James, is when did the news come out that the contract offer from Newcastle was rescinded? Did it come out this morning?
Officially half-time. Officially half-time,
yeah.
Which means that obviously he knew beforehand.
Yeah. Which was my thinking, though. He knew going in that, and he's just going, well, this is why I'm Kalen Ponga. He's done the same thing Munster did.
Similar to Munster.
Yeah, he's just like, all right, this is what you're getting if you're going to pay for me. So, yeah, had his best game. Again, of course, against the bottom of the league team in the Dragons.
They won this game. Weird.
Yeah. Where are they on the ladder?
Above Newcastle. Oh, no, they're not actually. They are equal with Newcastle, the old for and against. They're equal with the Gold Coast Titans, Newcastle, Canberra, St George, Brisbane Broncos, all the pretender teams, essentially. That should avoid the spoon. Thank God for the West Tigers, etc., etc.
My point being, it would have probably been harder to do this against Manly, Manly, Penrith, or Melbourne. So he came in, showed out. Of course, so there was, what was it? It was a 3-year extension on his current 2-year deal, which was options in his favour.
Yes.
Which would be a 5-year deal.
Which is an interesting way to write deals, and it seems to be happening more and more that the back end of the deal seems to be in the player's favour. Reece Walsh is looking at a similar situation with the Warriors.
So I wonder if part of the Knights weren't happy with, because even if they do this 3-year extension, I would assume they'd try to rewrite the first 2 years like, hey, you're going to be here for 2 years, not give you a 3-year extension, and then you can still leave us in a year's time, because that kind of seems iffy to me with the way the contract works. But either way, it sounds like they're going to not give him anything, so he could stay there for the 2 years, or Ponga could potentially go to the Dolphins. So that chat's back on, whether he plays 1 or 6.
At minimum, next year we will see Munster or Kalen Ponga sign.
If you're the Dolphins, you need to get at least one. If you get both, happy days. If you get one,
I think they can legitimately get both, considering the situations that both those players are in, and getting lowballed by their respective clubs. I don't think it's impossible that we see a world where both Kalen Ponga and Cam Munster end up at the Dolphins, and at a minimum one.
Yeah, well,
if they can't get both, maybe Reece Walsh ends up there with one of them to play.
Well,
the other position.
Either one, whoever takes the first step, you would think, hey, if Munster signs there, if you're Kalen Ponga, you go, fuck yeah, I'm going to go join the Dolphins and play with Munster. That's better than half pairing I currently got. And if Munster's there and he sees Ponga's going there, he's like, well, hey, I've got something to work with. I know he's talented, and maybe I will sign that deal. So I think for the Dolphins, you really got to get at least one. Potentially, we think they could get 2. If they miss out on both, I'd be quite worried about their fortunes for the first year in the league next year. But by all accounts, it sounds like the Knights might be looking to add Milford, which kind of potentially may mean that Ponga's on the way out. It's kind of a shitty trade.
No, it's not like for like, is it? In an aging Anthony Milford
still pretty young.
Well, yeah, comparatively.
Got a lot of miles in the legs, though. We have to say
aging in comparison to KP, who you'd imagine is only going to get better and better. Yeah, it seemed. I kind of interpreted that as maybe a little bit of damage control, as in, maybe we're not going to have KP So we need to start looking at a Ponga-less Newcastle future,
Yep.
if you will. But yeah, interesting. A lot of the chat around the NRL this year will be, who do the Dolphins sign, and other clubs also will be vying for these guys, and where do these big superstars of our game end up?
That's it.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
during halftime, as it was breaking, I suppose Joey John was like, he's not moving.
Yeah, he was pretty adamant, wasn't he?
adamant.
And
He has been for weeks, though, that he's not going anywhere.
And Joey has got a lot to do with the Newcastle Knights in assistant
He
coaching.
works with Ponga.
And works with him, So is that his bias, or is that him just saying...
I'd say a little bit, definitely.
a little bit, but maybe also, it's unlike the media to beat up things that never come to fruition.
Well, we do know they did rescind the deal. Like, that's fact. That
Yes,
happens.
that is fact.
So,
But maybe there is over speculation as to what the current situation is. Anyways, time will tell.
Yes. Just before we move on, what do you think about that no call on the offside right at the end?
No, fine. Dragons win. Happy with it.
Bunker missing things? Oh, my God. I never would have guessed.
The Knights have... Knights fans got a reason to be upset yesterday afternoon and today. Obvious offside. Obviously, came off Lomax's hand, went forward, was an accidental offside. Should have been penalty Newcastle at that stage as well. Dragons led by 1 point.
Yep.
So could have tried a long penalty goal to get the win. By 1 point with the penalty kick, or could have gone forward and tried to have a set at our line. Yeah, big miss, and it's a weekly occurrence in the NRL where there's a big call or no call, which adversely affects the outcome of the game. So Knights fans maybe a little bit robbed, but also spare a thought for us Dragons fans.
Gotta take them as they come.
And whose season got absolutely obliterated by a barbecue last year. Come on, guys! Like, it's not like it's not like this win went to Melbourne or Penrith. Come on, this is two losers just fighting it out after school with no one cares, no one else is watching the fight. It's just two losers. It could be a fight between you and me, monkey car. No offense, no offense, but no one cares. No one cares. No one cares. Let's move on with it. Dragons are 2-4, Knights are 2-4. Neither of these teams win the premiership this year. Let's move forward.
I think the story's more important as an NRL fan. Is like, if you're an NRL fan, you should be expecting this every week. Because
it was bad. It was so obviously an accidental
We've
offside.
seen the 7 tackle sets as well, and there's
there was
knock-ons getting
there was another one in the game, where the 6 again siren went off. So the Dragons thought that they had a 6 again. They thought it was second tackle, and the refs yelling at him, last tackle, and then apparently he didn't call for a 6 again, and the siren went off. So how that works, I'm not really sure. Shit show, but Dragons get the win. Who cares?
We haven't started calling them, but it's slowly working its way back into another year of bumhole league.
We can't throw the BH word around, frivolously.
Last year was a bad year for NRL. It started off kind of okay, and it's kind of...
It's such a shame because the quality of the league in terms of there's been less blowouts this year.
The last couple of weeks.
A few. But look at this. Look at this week. The scores. The biggest margin was Penrith Brisbane, and I didn't think Brisbane were that bad in that game.
We didn't talk about the double slap, but Brisbane really struggled after they got the sin binning there.
Get my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
The Will Smiths,
Will Smith, Chris Rock.
So they really struggled with 12 man versus Penrith, who just didn't care, and they tore them up. They're like, extra space, thank you.
It is concerning though when these obvious calls are getting missed. Again,
they're talking about
maybe why I shouted Gil McLaughlin at the start of the league, at the start of the episode. That league seems to run with less hiccups than the NRL.
Yes. Well, they're already
a fan of both.
They're already talking about the 2 ref system again. after everyone kind of forgot that, oh, yeah, we got rid of that in COVID because we couldn't afford sending all the referees everywhere.
Couldn't afford two idiots making mistakes.
Pretty much. It was like, oh, this is better.
Just
and
makes it
then-
look even worse.
Yeah. Well, wrestle's back in the game. We're going to have to crack down on the wrestle. And
How?
like,
It's just good teams like being
Yeah.
smart.
It's
Yeah,
just-
the
it's
wrestle's
just-
back because it's effective.
exactly. It's just the same cycle of stupidity. Anyway,
Anyways.
Yeah.
that's the
It
NRL
is
for you.
what it is. There is a game that will start during this episode.
Yeah, who
the
cares?
Parramatta Eels.
Parramatta's going to dip the
Don't care.
Tigers. 50 points.
Yeah, hard to see the Tigers winning this one. They did change up their team a fair
Did you,
bit.
did you see that? I think there's like 12 changes or something like that.
I don't think it's 12. I
That-
did
well-
have a look. I think it's like 5 or 6.
Well, they've got a lot of guys coming in, but they've also switched guys in positions.
Yeah, so
and
Jackson
changes
Hastings,
overall was
Hastings
solid.
comes back. He plays 7. Luke Brooks to 6. Jock Madden to the bench. You don't like that?
Well, you've got this generational talent for the last 10 years, paying him as over $1 million to be a halfback, and he's like, yeah, no, you're going to go play 6 now.
It's not like you're going to drop.
I know, but it's still stupid.
It's not like the Bulldogs that buy, Kyle Flanagan and then don't play him and then bring him back.
Yeah.
And the
But
rest
it's
of
more to me. It sounds more like the Dragons. It's like, oh, yeah, let's just reshuffle the whole spine and hope for
it.
the
Yeah,
best.
bit of reshuffling. 2 and 4 Dragons, thank you very much. Not the 0 and 5 West Tigers. Look down on that pathetic merger club from one slightly less pathetic merger club.
Yeah. So yeah, that game's going to happen. The Eels should win by 50. James Maloney is currently over playing French rugby league. He's been
anymore.
They won the comp last year, didn't
Yes,
they?
yes. Been stood down for his nose candy. So
Again, is this news? NRL caught with nose candy. Is it
no.
news?
No.
I suppose the repercussions pretty big. I wonder as well
It's
over
maybe
there.
worse over-
Well, over
hard to
there,
say.
do they have less tolerance? I suppose.
it's
for
not
him-
like Southeast Asia. Let's say that much. So
Yeah, no. The news story isn't James Maloney shot by firing squad
it's currently stood down.
for drug indiscretion in Singapore. No, it is not like the Singapore Rugby League. Stood down at his age. He would have to be 35.
He's up there. Yeah.
Can someone chase that up? 35. Yeah, not bad.
He'd get a run for the Dragons.
I wouldn't say no. wouldn't say no. Do like Talatau Amon. Saw a little bit of him yesterday.
Did Ferguson has he got a club yet?
No, Blake Ferguson doesn't have a club. He's playing bush footy.
Bush footy, that's what he
Yeah,
said.
he
Yeah,
got signed by a bush footy team, much to the dismay of the other teams in that league. There. Imagine he'd be going pretty good. I reckon.
Yes, I'd agree.
Yeah, out there.
Well, he can definitely come home and play footy, is what we're saying.
Indeed.
Final story: NRL season opener potentially in the USA. They're talking about SoFi Stadium. I think that'll be excellent. They'll get about 1,000 people there to that game. So
Is it? I don't think it's SoFi.
that's been the chat. I don't think they'll be able to get
I
it.
think it's the other Chargers stadium that seats 35,000. The one that they were using
the
before.
one that isn't their home game. So
Correct.
like-
The one that they were using before SoFi got built.
Yeah, and they got more away fans
Because
showing up.
it was again mainstream media. Like you may as well listen to 3 idiots that don't have any fucking idea what they're talking about. Then watch the mainstream media because they
LA NFL team.
well they were showing pictures of SoFi Stadium. I was like, geez, that's a big get. 100,000 people in a brand new stadium with the biggest TV in the world.
well,
and the
they could
rest of
probably
it.
get it in March. There's no one there, so
Well, yeah, getting it, but like for one, it's not grass. For two, it's way too big for the actual game. I think they've got the other.
I agree,
One of the other.
they don't need an
stadiums in LA.
80,000 seat stadium for
No.
4,000 of rugby league fans.
The other thing as well is that they had pretty much had this lined up before COVID, threw
Mm-hmm.
a spanner in the works. So interesting to see. I also wonder how many people there will be Americans and how many Aussies will say, "Fuck yeah, let's go over for a
It'll
quick,
be expats, and then
or a quick trip over to LA, Vegas, watch
Yeah.
the season opener and come home."
yeah, I agree. And then all the
Great idea for a Bucks party.
Yeah.
At anyone getting married soon.
I'd say the Yank fans will probably show up and go, "Oh, this is not rugby."
well,
It's not you.
yeah, well, we've seen.
They have no idea the difference.
No idea, especially when we're talking about league or rugby players that make it in the NFL. Jordan Mailata up here playing rugby.
All the couple of UFC fighters that have
Yeah, they all play rugby. Volk, do you know he has a rugby background? But the thing is, they've had some great crowds to watch the All Blacks when they've gone over there. They sold out Soldier
They do
Field.
have a rugby college system, though.
Yeah.
So
the game of rugby union is slightly known to our
bigger than rugby
friends
league.
across the ditch. Yes, much bigger than a rugby league. Marks, what did you find on this? Can you confirm it's not SoFi Stadium?
Not SoFi. They might have just been using those like some of the promotional.
They literally were showing pictures of it on the news.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, mainstream media, look at us.
So, again, mainstream media have reported that the likely venue to host that open for next season would be Bank of California Stadium, home of the Major League Soccer team, Los Angeles FC.
which is where the Chargers are playing.
Where the Chargers were playing.
While they were building SoFi.
Which is like a 35 to 40,000 seat stadium.
22 seat stadium.
22? Is that it? 22?
Yeah. Slow, small.
The Chargers couldn't fill it. It was so
Half of it was Philip Rivers' kids.
Dude, also true.
It has hosted rugby sevens tournaments in the past, so and I mean, being a soccer pitch should be pretty close to stock standard for an NRL field.
Is that also, is it spelt like that, BANC, or is that a typo?
Yeah. No, I think it's that. Bunk. I think they had a shot with a helicopter flying past, and it was
BANC.
BANC.
There you go. Yeah. Spelling, quick maths, none of it is required in this crazy world that we live in.
Right.
That wraps up our NRL chat. Let's talk about the AFL. And speaking of, the Hawthorn-Geelong Easter Monday game has just kicked off. We will keep an eye on that one as it unfolds there at the G. Yeah, we've got an interesting juxtaposition. That's a real word. It means contrasting, if you will, polar opposites, putting two words next to each other that have the different meanings, etc., etc. The way that I'm applying it here is the Hawthorn Hawks have this young team that no one kind of expected much out of this year, and they're kind of playing a little bit over what people had expected against this ageing Geelong side, who also are playing quite well. But yeah, definitely a battle of young and old in this one. Looking forward to watching it unfold before us here.
It's a good pick out, that one.
Thursday night, your Brisbane Lions survived a late scare against Collingwood, coming out 7-point winners, 98-91. 200s in this one, one from each side. And both players had sort of played half of their career at another club. I am talking about Lachie Neale and Jeremy Howe. Lachie Neale, he's 28. 200 games in by the age of 28. If he stays injury-free, he should be at 300 by 33. So well on the way to playing a lot of Aussie rules footy. He had 33 and a sausage roll in this one.
He's been great
for the former Brownlow medalist. And it's good to see him, as a Carlton...
Healthy.
Well, as a Carlton fan, I talk about Cripps, coming back and looking unreal until he did his hammy last week. Poor fella. But Lachie Neale was banged up last year. You could tell that he was playing hurt. He wasn't quite himself. He is starting to look himself again, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. And they've been good, and that's kind of what they needed. They needed some, go forward through the middle. They needed a bit of extra pace, and they've looked good. Brisbane. They've got a few extra goal scorers as well, which is kind of helped them out. Yeah, I've liking where they're going.
And the main one, Joe Danaher, he kicked 4. He's got an absolute leg, launched a few from outside 50. I think he's kicking pretty straight this year as well. I think he's like 16 goals 5, 16 goals 6, something like that, off the top of the head.
I think Charlie's the one that's struggling at the moment.
Charlie definitely fucked a few of my multis, Charlie Cameron. I put the Cameron multi on this one, actually. I had Cameron Rayner to kick a goal, Charlie Cameron to kick 2, and I had Darcy Cameron to kick 2. It didn't come off anyways. Have had a reasonable run. We could start another podcast about Pepsi's near multi-wins.
It'll be a long podcast.
And even worse than this one, it would have less listeners, I would imagine. A bit of fun out of the tall guys in this one. Mason Cox wearing the goggles looks like some kind of super villain. If you will. A lot of guys saying, maybe this experiment might be over. He just really struggles to clunk marks. Coming from a tall guy that struggles to clunk marks. Take that as you will. And Darcy Fort rocking the big fro. A bit of John C. Reilly about it. It was interesting. I was watching the game with the wife Thursday night, and she came up with this perler. She goes, it's weird. Most footy players, they look like jocks, but then there's just a few that really look like nerds sprinkled amongst them. And I said, yeah, they're ruckmen, like the one that you're married to. They just really don't have that jock athletic kind of look to them. They just kind of have that, you're in the team because you're tall and uncoordinated. Kind
Yeah,
of
well, I was going to say, did she ruin you after that? Did you get stuck in you? It was like, nah, you shit.
No, she didn't use those words. Possibly she thinks those words without saying them. She knows she might think you're a 32-year-old playing second division here and not putting food on the table on a consistent basis with your stupid ass podcast. Possibly that goes through her head, but she's never one to articulate those words. No.
Speaking of the tall fellas in this, did you see the media during the week getting stuck into Grundy, going after him? Are they paying overs for him? Is he a top 5 ruckman? And I was just like, what the fuck's going on?
He's a top 2 ruckman.
They lose a game, and then
he was quiet. He was quiet in this game. I think he had.
I think Oscar had a big game as probably what helped.
The big O was not
and
too bad.
He's kind of working his way into that conversation of being in those top 10, top 5 guys. So
yeah, that is absolute. To quote the great Luke Beveridge, we like to sip on a few Luke Beverages here on the Esky. Gutter journalism.
Yeah,
that journalism. You go down to
clickbait.
the inner city of any big city that has problems with homelessness and poverty, and find that journalism sitting right there in the gutter amongst the heroin needles and cigarette butts and human feces and the rest of it.
yeah, I agree. Going after Grundy like that,
Not top. In what world do you live in where Brodie Grundy is not a top 5 ruckman?
it's stupid.
The argument could be made not top 2 when Nick Naitanui is healthy.
And he's not. So
That's the argument that could be made. Not top 5.
yeah, Max is 1, and then he's
Come on, man.
I think
That's a come on, man.
Yeah, I know.
Call ESPN. Call
But
ESPN.
it was clickbait. It was
That's
100% clickbait.
Come on, man. And it got you. It got you. You clicked on it. Gutter journalism. Next story. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so like you say, a bit quiet in this one. Pies have lost 3, so of course they're starting to trot out these stories.
They need someone to blame. They don't have Maguire there anymore.
Yeah, who's the guy on big money at the moment? Grundy. Let's start there. So anyway,
That's ridiculous. There was a bit of niggle in this one. We did see Darcy Gardner with that late shot on Josh Dacos. What did we think about this one? I thought it looked a fair bit worse than the Paddy Ryder one from a week ago, where Paddy copped 2 weeks.
this is the one that showed in the back before, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Left his feet. There was intent.
Jumped in the back.
Intent to harm there. It was late. It wasn't the worst thing ever. Josh Dacos jumped up. He was fine. And that's probably where the conversation needs to go. In that Will Day was concussed and misses this game that we're watching now due to Paddy Ryder's late bump on him, which seemed fairly innocuous. Whereas Josh Dacos was fine. He jumped back up after the Darcy Gardner shot. Gardner just gets a fine, won't face the tribunal. Thoughts around that one?
It's hard to say. I was trying to think of comparisons, and I was just like, well, yeah, if you murder someone, it's murder. If it's attempted murder, it's attempted murder.
Intent.
There's intent there, but it is a different jail sentence. So, yeah.
It's like if you try to kill someone and you don't kill them versus not trying to kill someone and you kill them.
Yeah, well, the same thing. You're trying to take someone's head off. You take his head off, he's concussed, and you try and he's not.
Yes.
But you still intended to try and take
we've
his head off.
charged Paddy Ryder with manslaughter because he didn't mean to really kill Will Day 2 weeks or last weekend. He did try to pull out, although he did use his shoulder rather than sort of pushing off.
Yeah.
So we give Paddy Ryder manslaughter 2 weeks, and then we give Darcy Gardner attempted murder, but the other bloke was fine.
So it's not.
He went for the drive-by and the gun wasn't loaded, and Josh Dacos jumps up. And
It's still a felony, but
it's still a felony. He goes on your record, but you're free to play next week, Darcy. Thanks very much.
I don't know. Like, I'm not one for. I'm not a huge fan of the niggle in that regard and trying to bump and get one over. It kind of shows to me that you're either losing that matchup, you're a bit frustrated, and then you're trying to take one out. The sportsman in me, not a huge fan of that. So I'm more than happy if you want to try and stamp that out. Considering, yes, that could lead to hey, you've hit him in the back, maybe he face plants it, hits the ground head first, and then it's way worse than you thought. You're just putting other people's, careers essentially at risk potentially. But again, these guys know every time I step up on that footy field, there's going to be a hard fought battle, and potentially I'm going to get hurt. So, I'm not a huge fan of head knocks. So, do what you will with that.
Interesting. Brisbane moral of the story, come away winners there. Collingwood have lost 3 on the trot. Although they've been in every game, it does make for an enticing Anzac Day matchup with the Bombers, and there's Q-Clash next week. Lions have the Suns on Sunday.
Yeah, good game. I think the Pies and Bombers, they're kind of two clubs roughly in the same sort of area, whereas I think the Lions should probably dick the Suns. You'd
think so, although Gold Coast haven't been that bad. Lions will start strong favourites.
They're healthy, which I think has helped the Suns.
Indeed. Bulldogs
did dick
North Melbourne, although it was just the first quarter. 51 points they scored in the first quarter.
Yeah,
North didn't look too bad.
All right, we'll put this in second gear and we'll coast this bitch out.
Yeah, a little bit. The Kangas, they did fight, I suppose, for the 3 quarters. Gave up too much of a lead, but you're right, maybe Beveridge and the Dogs just said, yeah, look, we're not going to lose this game. We can just sort of coast a little bit.
Yeah. Do we want to score 200 points on them? I was like, I think we're good enough.
Well, they didn't. Josh Bruce, obviously rehabbing his ACL. They didn't have a 10-goal scorer like he did last year. Had an absolute day against North. Although there was 10 combined between Aaron Norton and Cody Waitman. They had 5 apiece. And Bailey Smith, the people's mullet, just a casual 43, if you don't mind. Men want to be him. Women want to hold his hand. He's a good-looking rooster. He's a very good footballer at that. North play the Cats next week in Hobart. Good luck. Dogs have the Crom, who are coming off a win, but the Dogs should start heavy favourites there.
Good.
They are looking good, aren't they? We'll get to them in just a second. I'll tell you who else is looking good. The Sydney Swans. Yeah. Sydney Swans, cheer, the red and the white. They absolutely humped West Coast into submission out in their own stadium. No Buddy had surgery on his finger. He's got a dicky finger like me. Yep. He's talented. I'm not. They did not miss him. Although West Coast did miss their big in Nick Nat Nui.
Nick Nat's a big out for them.
MCL 6 weeks ish. Looking at
bad knees for a big fella is not good.
No, he's had the 2 ACLs. He's barely played much footy over the last 4 or so years, except for last year where we saw him string together 22 games looking like old Nick Nat. Came 5th in total clearances, which is absolutely obscene for a ruckman to get that many clearances. Just wishing him a speedy recovery, and West Coast are kind of in all sorts as it is with injuries, so definitely need their big flying Fijian in the middle, so hopefully it's a straightforward recovery. For his MCL, it was Jamie Cripps, cousin of Pat, his 200th. He did kick a late consolation, but the game was all Sydney Swans. Shout out to our AFL correspondent and Radaladian in the Steam, who we had on last week, the Ginger Ninja. He did have the Swans as a smoky for the GF. Check the tape. It's before there was a game played this year when we previewed the AFL season. He listed the Swans as a smoky, and they're definitely playing like it. They had 9 players have 20 or more possessions. Isaac Heaney, 3 sausage rolls, and we're just seeing continued improvement out of their young guns. Justin McInerney is getting better and better. Errol Goulden, our boy, Errol, the second Errol to ever play AFL footy. He was very good. I think he had 27. Chad Warner, the bloke that kicked it to Buddy on his 1,000th, looking very good. And Logan McDonald, who for a young key forward is starting to develop. He kicked 2 in this one. You don't see key forwards come in and dominate. Thinking of Jamara Ugle-Hagan, last year's number 1 overall draft pick, who's struggled to find his feet so far. Logan McDonald, who was also a high draft pick, is starting to look like the real deal. I think he'll kick a bunch of goals for the red and the white.
Yeah, and to go on your grand final chat, they may not win this year, but I think we talk windows. Theirs is opening.
Yep,
it's opening, and it's going to be a big window.
Yeah, they've probably got another. I don't want to give them a huge window. Let's say 4 years.
Yep. And in that time, we're going to see, most likely, the retirement of Buddy Franklin,
correct,
the best forward of this era. We're going to most likely see the retirement of Josh Kennedy, and we're going to see Luke Parker not retire in the next 4 years, I wouldn't think, but age yes. maybe slow down a little bit.
But all of these young fellas we're talking about,
they're in the perfect
take the steps, keep progressing as we're expecting them to, and
the perfect launching pad to replace these legends, and hard to replace a guy like Buddy Franklin, hard to replace a guy like Josh Kennedy. But these guys, without putting too much pressure on them, they're all 20 or so AFL games into hopefully their long careers. They are starting to look like the real deal, and they're playing really good team footy. There's no real superstar in that Sydney Swans team, but they're just a bunch of young-ish kids that move the ball around really quickly. And look like the real deal this year. Again, maybe I agree. Are they? Could they win the flag this year? I don't know if they're going to push a Melbourne or a Geelong or a Brisbane Lions.
I just think it's so
Brisbane Lions at the end of the year, but I think they're in that next tier.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be there, and they might. They're the dark horse. They might shock these guys and sneak their way into one. But I think your point there, Buddy's probably the face of the biggest superstar there. Who does that transition to? Who's their franchise star going to be going forward? And I think once they kind of got that and identify that, that's what they'll build around as a club.
Well, the like for like comparison there is Logan McDonald, picking him as a key forward. We're seeing him kind of develop pretty well.
My point is, it doesn't have to be him, because like for Brisbane, it's Lachie Neale. He's their face. So it's just like, who's that guy that everyone's kind of knows is the big talent, the face of the franchise, and then they can kind of build around it. Because I think that's the one thing they'll need once they transition from Buddy to whoever that person is.
Yeah, see, I don't know if it's cut and dry. I don't know if they will have one clear cut face of the franchise. I think they'll just be a really strong unit, and all these young guys coming through as they develop. Braden Campbell we didn't even mention before. I think they'll just be a really good team.
Yep.
Yeah.
To throw across to, say, the Phoenix Suns in the NBA, who we'll talk about it in a second,
Chris Paul and Booker are there. I'd say they're both big franchise guys.
Are they top 10 players in the NBA?
Maybe not top 10, but they're definitely...
Is DeAndre Ayton a top 10 guy in the NBA? I think that's it. Look, it's a haggard comparison.
Yeah. But when I think of the teams that have won recently, like you think of Richmond, you think of Dusty, you think of like Demons last year, it's Petrarca or Max Gawn. Like they've got those guys that
interesting. Dusty was definitely the face of Richmond, and no offense to Rewalt and that back six who have been killer for years, but yes, Dusty was the face of the franchise. But then I think that's a harsh comparison with Melbourne, who you have the best ruckman in the league in Max Gawn. You've got Christian Petrarca, And
I'm saying they're their faces.
And Clayton Oliver.
When you think of Demons, you think of those.
Well, there's multiple guys that come to mind.
I don't think you need to have one specific person.
You don't have to have one guy either. I think it's too much pressure. Yeah. And like we've seen with Richmond this year, with Dusty having a mental health break, when you lose that superstar, who takes over?
I guess it's what I'm trying to get as identity. Like, what's your club's identity going for? And they usually build that around a superstar, a couple of superstars, as you will. So I'm just interested to see what that looks like going forward. They will have to transition from the old guys to the young guys.
I mean, there's definitely going to be a transition in terms of leadership and who's, I guess, that mentoring sort of.
And it could be those
lack
three.
Of a better word, grandfathering of a lot of people.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I like it. 2022 identity politics, obviously very big on.
That's not like it started with politics. We'll have to break down all
Sydney Swans identify as.
Albo is the NRL currently with the way he's stuffing up constantly. But anyway, that's politics.
We've got an election here in a few weeks, and it's riveting stuff.
So bad.
Let's move through to the Saturday games. St Kilda, Gold Coast. St Kilda coming away 26-point winners in this one. Jack Steele, good as usual for the Saints. We've seen Rowan Marshall develop really quite nicely there for the Saints. And Jack Higgins, 5 sausage rolls, if you don't mind, out of the former Tiger. He's a cheeky little bastard. St Kilda, where do we see them? A lot of people had them in the top 8 this year, or thereabouts.
Yeah, fighting their way in. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, and similar to the NRL, where you've got Melbourne, Brisbane. I think you can throw Sydney Swans in there. Fremantle are actually looking really good. But, they're kind of your definites. I won't have Fremantle as a definite, but I will have Melbourne, Brisbane and the Swans. And then you've got this next kind of tier, I suppose, with your Geelongs, with your Carltons.
Yep.
I think you can chuck St Kilda and Fremantle in there.
Yeah, Hawthorn potentially could be in that conversation.
Potentially
as well. I think they're
leading the Cats at present, nearly towards the end of the first quarter there.
They're kicking very well for their goals compared to Geelong currently. But
Well, another team to maybe throw amongst there is the Crom.
the Crom.
The mighty Crom.
Return of the Tex.
Return of Tex. He was back last week, wasn't he? I think, but
He's been good in the 2 games he's been back.
He booted 5 in the win against Richmond. It probably won't make up for the absolute pantsing that they copped in the 2017 GF at the hands of the Tigers, but good to get one over Richmond, who are struggling considering their list, obviously without their superstar Dustin Martin.
Lacking identity.
Here we go. Crows fans will definitely be happy with Josh Rochelle. He booted 2 again this week, playing very good for an 18-year-old. Again, no Riley Thilthorpe. Very interesting omission. Another run in the sandful for the high draft pick from last year. And Jordan Dawson, after kicking that game winner a few weeks ago in the showdown, he was pretty good again. I think they're getting their money's worth out of the former Swans player there. Richmond, are we seeing the end of the dynasty? Are we seeing them phasing out as a football side? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. I think they're aging. They're not looking like the old Richmond of
True. But has Dusty retired yet?
No, he has not.
So I don't think the window is probably looking for some renovations and some sliders or something to reopen. But yeah, they're still going to have talent there, and until Dusty retires, he's going to have that factor. I don't want to say the Tom Brady factor, but he's going to have that factor of he can do anything currently. But Tigers' fortunes probably reside, or their future fortunes reside on his shoulders and what he wants to do going forward.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know how much of it just goes down to that one man. Obviously a superstar, obviously one of the greats. It's going to be hard without him. So, and again, I spoke about it last week. I think he, after everything he's done for that club,
he doesn't need to do anymore. That's
exactly bringing them not single-handedly, but being a big part in them winning
he could
3
retire.
flags.
That's I guess
exactly.
Like, well, I don't really need to do this anymore. I've got other things I can do.
I'll reiterate what I said last week. He needs to take his time and get himself well mentally before he worries about winning football games for Richmond.
Agree.
100%. Yeah.
A team that doesn't really need to worry too much about winning football games is the Melbourne Demons. They were way too strong for GWS. They are looking like the premier team in the league by a fair margin, I would say, at the moment. We're talking about tiers before. Perhaps Melbourne's tier 1 and then everyone else you have to start talking about in tier 2. That might be a more accurate representation as to where things are at currently in the league.
Marks, what are their next games coming up?
I'll bring that up if
I've got them here.
Oh, you got the next games?
Yep. So they got Richmond.
That'll be an interesting matchup. Actually, these next 3 weeks are all interesting. If you wouldn't mind, Marks.
Yes, Richmond. Then they go across the Hawthorn, then St Kilda, and then they have the West Coast Eagles.
Keep going.
After that, keep going.
North.
Then they go North.
Keep going.
Dockers. And then
Dockers currently been playing pretty well, but that is still 5 weeks away. But I don't see them losing any of those games.
There's no one there that really challenges that much.
I was looking for when are they going to play? Say Lions or
Brisbane, Sydney away,
exactly.
something like that.
So they could go on a very long winning streak currently.
Yeah.
I'd like to see those two there, the younger clubs in Hawthorn and St Kilda.
Yeah, and not saying that either of those clubs beat Melbourne in the way that they are, but it will be a really good litmus test, I think, for seeing where those younger sides are at in St Kilda and Hawthorn when they go up against the world beating Demons at the present in a few weeks. But yeah, not much to write home about really. Max Gawn good, Petrarca good, Oliver good. Bailey Fritsch had 4. Cozzy Pickett had 3. Melbourne, outright favourites to win this whole thing, to go back to back. And look, we're talking about, hating Poms before and teams that you love to hate in Manly. Yeah. Hard to hate on Melbourne after they have struggled for so long in recent memory.
They're not Collingwood. So.
They're not Collingwood. They're not even Richmond. Who 10 years ago, you couldn't hate Richmond. They were perpetually 9th. You kind of felt a bit
sorry. If you win lots, you get
a bit sorry. And then a team starts winning a bunch and you go, hey, whoa. Okay,
those breaks.
that's a bit much from Tigerland. Yeah. What about that as well? I have to mention it. Sunrisers Hyderabad
Oh, yeah, yes.
singing the Richmond theme song. We're from Hyderabad. Da, 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 Hyderabad. And the AFL posting it. Who would have brought that into Hyderabad, I wonder? Because Kane Williamson is their skip. Who's playing for them? That would be a Richmond Tigers fan.
I don't know. I was going
There's some
any Aussies playing over there? Oh, maybe in the coaching staff. That's probably where it comes from.
Oh, is Tom Moody there?
Could be.
I think, yeah, I don't know. He's from out west.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't want to sing West Coast Eagles at the moment. We're the Eagles. We're fucking high, etc.
Finishes off.
Sunday, Carlton withstand for the second time this season a massive comeback from Port Adelaide. Some notable omissions in this one. Patrick Cripps, hamstring. He was in good spirits. They interviewed him at halftime. Doesn't seem to be looking like he'll miss too much footy.
Did he do hammy last year?
I think he had, mostly was his shoulder that was giving him problems, but he has had recurring hamstring problems. I mentioned it earlier in the episode that his first 4 weeks or 3.5 weeks, if you will, looked like old Patrick Cripps, looked like possible Brownlow medal winning Cripps, probably jagged himself 7 or 8 Brownlow votes in those first 3 weeks. And then, a big loss for Carlton. It doesn't look like it's too serious. It's not a Latrell type injury, on a tendon that had been surgically repaired. It seems like Paddy will just miss a few weeks. As the same news for the Port Adelaide Power in their incumbent Brownlow medalist, Ollie Wines, had that atrial fibrillation, AF, it was diagnosed as.
Where is that, Peps?
In the heart, yes. For our less medical aficionados of the Esky, we of course give ourselves honorary doctorates. Me dislocating my finger last week. Dr. Sean on my left here gave me his expert opinion on how to relocate it. Turns out he was actually right. A little bit of conjecture, a little bit of controversy, if you will, in the AFL suggesting that it might have something to do with the COVID vaccine. Is that something we're going to discuss here on the Esky? No, you can make up your own mind about that one.
Yeah, YouTube might come after us.
Yes, indeed. However, interesting that people on such a big platform would even go down that road.
Yeah, I mean, considering how many players they've had that weren't very keen on getting the vaccine as well. The AFL will constantly go, oh, yeah, you can get heart inflammation and it can be bad for you.
Although the compliancy rate for vaccinations seem to be, considering how many guys are in the AFL, we've only heard, a few stories here and there.
Our population is very good for overall.
Yeah, we saw Liam Jones effectively retire from Carlton around it. Jack Darling is back playing. Yeah. I'm not sure if he's vaccinated, but had come out saying that he did not want to be vaccinated. An interesting thing for the AFL Footy Show to bring up, and definitely something that we don't want to discuss in too much depth here, considering we are very early into our podcasting career and don't want to end it right now.
Yeah. Let's just put it down to too much pre-workout or something.
Yeah. The old Jack. You remember Jack, that old green juice?
Yeah, which was basically meth. So.
Essentially meth, yeah. My heart never felt great after taking that shit. Let's put it down to Jack. Too many Red Bulls. Nonetheless, Carlton, they hold on and they win this game. They're 4-1. If it hadn't been for not rocking up against the Gold Coast Suns last week, we could be talking about Carlton, the Blue Flaggers, if you will, being right at the top of the table. We saw a really nice game from Charlie Curnow, who missed a lot of footy last year. He booted 5 yesterday for the Blue Baggers. And then in terms of Port Adelaide's best, we saw a lot from Ryan Burton, the defender, getting a lot of the footy.
I think
Connor Rosey getting a fair bit.
You're skipping around the big story here.
What?
Port Adelaide 0-5.
They are, and we said before the game that they would be 0-5 coming up against a mighty...
You were confident.
I was confident.
Hence why the hat's forwards, not backwards today.
What? So. Well, that was the Dragons hat that I was wearing last time.
I know.
But yes, interesting. It is facing forwards, if you will. The Carlton Football Club logo on the front of it. Mate, Carlton are 4-1.
Where are they? Are they top 4?
No, well, there's a bunch of teams now here that are kind of in this gridlock. So they're technically 6th. Their percentage is the lowest of the 4-1 teams, which include Fremantle, Brisbane, St Kilda, and Sydney.
2, 3, 2.
2 to 6
are all on the
are
same
all 4 and
wins,
1.
yeah.
You've just got the Melbourne Demons at the top of the table who are 5 and 0, and at the far other end of the spectrum, Port Adelaide, the only side in the competition, 0 and 5, behind the likes of North Melbourne, Essendon, GWS.
Can
etc.
confirm for me, D's are the only undefeated Australian team currently.
Penrith,
Are they still undefeated?
6 and 0, yes.
Well, they're both in that race they were in last year.
Well, Australian is quite a broad term here.
The two big football codes we were just covering.
Well, in the rugby union, I couldn't tell you because I haven't watched a minute of it.
Yeah, no. Who cares about rugby?
The A-League's towards the end of its season, so I can't imagine anyone there.
Oh, sharp you. Just the NRL and AFL is what I'm getting at.
Yes, so in the NRL and the AFL, the Penrith Panthers and the Melbourne Demons are the two undefeated teams, and they are also the two incumbent premiers.
Yes.
So both off to red-hot starts to their 2022 campaigns.
That looks like a dislocation.
It does look like a dislocation. That's out. That is out in the Hawthorn-Geelong game there.
Who have skipped out to a bit of a lead there too.
Yeah, Hawthorn 33-10 with a minute to go in the first quarter. A interesting battle between young and old. Yesterday, Fremantle getting the win against the Bombers. The poor Bombers getting their first win, getting off the nudie run last week. Weren't able to do it again this week. We saw the return of Caleb Sarong for Freo. Obviously a big out for them earlier in the year. And we saw Andrew Brayshaw just continue his excellent form. He had 34 disposals and a sausage roll. Yesterday, Sarong in his first game back, 30, if you do not mind. And Matt Taberner, 7 sausage rolls. 7 for the key forward from Freo. Did anyone expect 5 rounds in for Freo to be second on the ladder?
No,
I certainly didn't.
No, I don't think anyone did.
No, you were the only one who tipped him this week, Sean.
Yeah, I tipped the Bombers. Dumbass.
Yeah, I tipped the Bombers. Well, I tipped the Bombers, but yeah.
Interesting times here in the AFL. A few teams going a lot better than
Expected.
Yeah. And like Port Adelaide, just aforementioned, going a lot worse than we expected.
Yeah, well, movement and the young fellas kind of standing up, I think, is kind of shown across the league. It is a young man's game, and
Sure is.
Yeah, they've kind of flipped it on its head a little bit.
That'll wrap up the AFL chat for this evening. We will just keep an eye on this Hawks-Cats game as it unfolds in front of our eyes.
Though they are, they've got 4 goals on them, but I think this game will probably end up being a goal difference.
Yeah, it looks...
It's classic kind of Geelong game.
The making of a close game. We did see Geelong have an excellent comeback a few weeks ago against Collingwood.
Yeah, they'll go
those old legs still have got a bit of run in them. Don't you worry about that.
Getting the medical sub ready there, but it looks of it, so yes.
You got the Super Rugby there? Yeah. we've got an undefeated team, it looks like.
No undefeated team. So Blues are on top of the ladder. So
an Australian. The question was on Australian
Australian leagues.
The Brumbies are 7-1. We live in Canberra, Australia.
Have they played in New Zealand yet? Because they were doing the Australian league first.
I don't think so. How much on TV have you heard about this ACT Brumbies team that used to be so well loved here, and I'm sure still has some diehard fans? But in terms of appealing to the casual,
if you don't have Stan, you know nothing.
If you don't have Stan, you don't know about it. There's no free to wear. There's nothing on. They're not on Fox Sports, am I right?
Not on Fox Sports. It's all Stan.
It's all Stan.
All Stan.
Yep. So it's a bad way to go.
You only get internationals on free to air.
Yeah, right.
And like we want to watch Australia get pants by New Zealand constantly.
Yeah, still
not
beat other teams.
Yeah.
Australia Argentina's been a good matchup the last few years.
Yes. Did you have an answer? Have they played any games in New Zealand?
No, I believe they've all played in Australia so far, from what I can see.
Anyway.
Yeah. And in the A-League, Melbourne
Checking
FC is leading the ladder. They've played 22 games.
That was last season.
24 games.
That's ongoing. The A-League final's not far away.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Again, another.
Oh, true. Yes, that's what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Sport.
Yep.
There you go.
46 points
Do you want to check the Super Netball to be? No, I'm joking. No.
What's going on? NBA?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the NBA. We're going to talk about the NBA and not the currently undefeated team.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's NBL going on. You didn't check that.
No, and that's why we're not going down this idiotic road of dribble and useless information.
I put that first note in there. You might need to confirm that for me because I believe Joe Embiid was the top scorer in the league this year.
And that's interesting. I don't know if he was.
I saw it on Twitter, so it could be fake news.
Has to be true.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I asked James, can you confirm with me? Because that might bring him back into the MVP chat.
Well, I thought it was it's Trey who had most points and most assists, and they was talking about it in the play-in game for the Hawks. That hadn't been done for years.
Yeah. Well, it was scoring winner, but I don't know. I have no idea what that means.
That's going to be per game, though, isn't it?
The problem here is you got to get total points rather than PPG.
Yeah.
Whilst you chase that up, let's go through the play-in games
How do we get to the playoffs?
Yes, exactly. It seems like the play-ins will be a staple in the NBA. Obviously, brought in because of COVID. I kind of like it. Yeah. I kind of like it. You get these one-off games where everything's on the line, and obviously it's made for TV and kind of making much hoopla out of teams that have to go and play 1 and 2 seeds and probably inevitably get belted. But I kind of like it.
Was there any? There was only one real upset in that lot, wasn't there, seed wise?
Well, I suppose that we're kind of jumping forward, but we will. The Pelicans beating the Clippers and the Hawks beating the Cavs were both the 9 seeds, eliminating the 8 seed.
Correct.
There was a bit of a caveat with Paul George being out for the Clippers due to COVID protocols. Pelicans getting the win against them. Look, they go through and they'll get the Suns, and the Suns made mincemeat of them today, so it doesn't matter that much. Who really knows that? Exactly. But let's quickly run through how it unfolded. We saw the 7th seed Nets beat the 8th seed Cavaliers when Kyrie went absolutely mad. He was 12 from 12 from his first 12 shots. That would have been a play-off record, but however, play-in doesn't count in the play-off records.
Does he get a play-in record?
I guess, in a new category, play-in, in the 3 years of illustrious play-in history. Kyrie has a record there. I thought the Cavs were pretty good in that one. Darius Garland with 34. They didn't have their big man, the big fro, Jarrett Allen, who was out with the finger. And then they had to go on to play the winner of the Hawks and the Hornets, who were the Atlanta Hawks, who really smoked the Hornets. Interesting, the Hornets have struggled against big men this year. So the Hawks had 13 more boards in this one. Clint Capella had 17. And this was the one where Miles Bridges threw the toys out with the cot, the toys being his mouthguard. And there's no real cot in this analogy, however.
The stadium.
It did, yes. The cot was the stadium.
Well, he didn't throw it out of the stadium, so he threw it into the stadium. Into
that's
the stands.
right. And he hit a fan who can be the diapers that were across there, this analogy is going to shit. Never really started that well, to be honest. But Miles Bridges did go out and apologise straight away, saying that kind of behaviour is unacceptable. I don't think he meant to hit her either. It was just a pegging of the aforementioned mouthguard and expressing his disdain with the way that they played that night. The Hawks were way, way better. The Wolves beat the Clippers in the first playing game in the West. We already talked about the second one there, but just going back to the first game, we saw Paul George before he got the COVID be quite good. The T-Wolves, they celebrated like they'd won the fucking, they'd just beaten the 96 Bulls, essentially, is the way that they celebrated that one. Pat Bev, he was quite noticeably fired up after beating his old teammate. Sean, did you see much of the celebrations from Pat Bev?
Well, I did see some of it, and he going in and was telling them to go buy plane tickets and head home. Like, it's a long trip home. I think he was very happy to beat his old teammates. So he was happy, and I think that fed into the celebrations from the rest of his teammates as well.
Do you think it was a bit over the top?
You get one over, former teammates.
Ex-teammates.
Yeah, like
we're talking about the Wolves last week in that they've only been in the playoffs once in the last 18 years or something a few years ago. So it's big for the people of Minnesota, I suppose.
Yeah. Maybe not the, like you say, it was just the play-in. It wasn't a playoff series or anything like that. They didn't come back from 3-1 down to win it. So, well, maybe a little bit over the top, but hey.
The best thing out of
get what you can. That's probably what the thing is.
Well, the best thing out of the whole thing was him wearing the Versace bathrobe on ESPN the next morning, and I don't know if he had slept or if he hadn't slept, but I think he'd had a few Budweisers under the belt.
He was happy.
He was. Take that as you will. Yep. And then in the elimination games, we already said that the Pels eliminated the Clippers. You do feel, I suppose, for the Clippers missing Paul George in the most important moment of the season due to the COVID. And then in the East, we saw the Hawks get the best of the Cavs. The Cavs actually started red hot in this game. Larry Markkinen, the big Finn, 5 from 8 from 3-point
Cavs have been good all
in the first half.
So.
They've been good all year, but they started really strong, and then, I remember we were talking about them when they were in third in the East for a little bit, and then just kind of dropped off towards the end. Obviously,
unlike the Hawks, who kind of went the opposite direction.
And the Hawks starting to get that villain kind of moniker, going into opposing arenas and ending.
They're doing the exact same thing they did last
year. That's right. They were a low seed. They had all these away games in hostile environments. Ice Trey just loves it.
Well, how good is Trey? That's
mate, and it gives him the wave. He scored 37 in that one. The crowd was absolutely. You could hear a coin dropper, a penny dropper in that one. They do get the heat. They weren't much of a match for them in their first matchup. Let's talk about the playoffs. The brackets are all set.
What do you got there for?
I was just going to say Trey is led points.
Total points.
Total points.
Yeah, fake news. I think maybe Joel points per game.
Yes.
Might have
he did have points per game.
There you go. Yeah. So, because I remember them saying Trey was the first person in Donkey's years to have the most total points and most total assists in the league this year.
So
interesting, his name doesn't really come up for MVP.
2155 points and 737 assists.
Ice Trey. Yeah. We'll talk about cold Trey and not in the ice way, if that makes sense.
When do they announce a VP?
It's not for a few weeks. It's
before the final.
I think it's before the finals start, but after the other playoff games.
Okay.
You might be able to chase that one up, the awards night, if you will. For the NBA, the playoffs are set. I'll just run through the bracket and we'll quickly cover the first games. Obviously, the first of 4-game series. Not as cutthroat, I suppose, each game as the play-ins, but we do have the final 16. So in the East, we have Miami taking on Atlanta. That's 1 versus 8. We've got Philadelphia taking on Toronto, 4 versus 5. We've got Milwaukee, the Bucks, the defending champions, going up against the Chicago Bulls. That's 3 versus 6, and a really spicy matchup between the Boston Celtics and the Brooklyn Nets. That's 2 versus 7 in the East. Heading over to the West, we have the first place Phoenix Suns taking on the 8th place New Orleans, who came in from that 9th seed. We've got the 4th place Dallas Mavs, Luka-less at the moment, taking on the 5th place Utah Jazz. The 3rd place Golden State Warriors taking on the 6th place Denver Nuggets, and the 2nd place Memphis Grizzlies taking on the 7th place Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to note, of course, no LA teams in the
LA teams, yes.
So the Clippers got eliminated.
Considering all the hoopla around the Los Angeles Lakers, their coach got sacked. We'll talk about that in a second. And the quality side that the Clippers have on paper, I suppose no Kawhi this year. Big caveat on that one. But yes, no LA teams. Those big market teams won't be featuring this year.
Did you run through results?
No, so game 1 of each bracket series has been completed. We did see the first game, the Jazz beat the Mavs 99-93. No Luka, and he's away for the first 2 games, which are both the Mavs' home games. So that's hard, isn't it? Yeah, so in their own house, they'll be Luka-less. They're already 1 zip down. Then they've got to go Luka-less, and then there's
on the road.
Well, it's not set in stone either that he'll be back for game 3 when they go to Salt Lake City to take on the Jazz. So the Jazz definitely have the
they'll have the upper hand.
The upper hand there, yeah. The rest of the Mavs team, with the Spencer Dinwiddie's, having to try and take, that side.
It's the classic kind of series that I could see going being 3-1 by that point, and then Luca comes back and goes 7 games,
and the storyline's all set for Luca to come back and save his team. He is that team. We talk about definitely. Some guys having to put teams on their backs, but there's not real big names in that Mavs lineup with your Jalen Brunses and your Reggie Bullocks and your Spencer Dinwiddies. They did okay against Utah Jazz. Spider Mitchell, 32 points for him, the best of the Jazz players there. The T-Wolves with the first big upset of the playoffs, 130 to 117.
Keeping that momentum
winners.
rolling.
Yeah, that momentum. Maybe it was good that they carried on like they'd won the whole thing. Maybe it was good for the team morale. Anthony Edwards was very good. He had 36 points, and they were able to kind of keep Ja Morant at bay. He did play. He scored 32, but didn't really have the typical kind of dominating game that we'd expect out of a Ja Morant. That's a massive win because
this is first final series, playoff series.
Or no? Did they make it last year as a low? Can you look at last year? I think they were there last year, but they were a low seed for memory. It's the first time definitely that Memphis have been a second seed.
Yes.
Maybe ever. Yeah. I might go out and say maybe ever. Obviously, a lot of hype around the Grizz, but that's a big loss to cop at home in their first one against the 7th seed Minnesota Timberwolves. The Philadelphia 76ers, pretty comfortable winners at home against Toronto. We saw Tyrese Maxey have an absolute game, probably the biggest game of his career for the 21-year-old with 38 points. Embiid, 19 points, 15 boards. And James Harden, 22 points, 14 dimes.
Harden back.
They're full strength.
They're back full strength.
They're good to go. So redemption year perhaps for Philadelphia after making the...
Well, they made big moves to try and win a finals game.
That's right, making all the moves and making the conference semi-finals last year against the Atlanta Hawks and getting done by Trey and his Atlanta Hawks boys. The Warriors won yesterday against the Denver Nuggets. Jordan Poole had a massive game, much like Tyrese Maxey, a big game for a young guard there. He had 30 points going up against the Joker and his Nuggets side. The Heat were too good for the Hawks, 115 to 91 winners there for the number 1 seed in the East. Really good team effort out of them. Duncan Robinson, who we saw get paid well in the offseason, 27 points for him. The Celtics and Nets, the best game so far out of the playoff series, went down to the final.
There's a lot of feeling in this one.
A lot of feeling in this one. Kyrie Irving, 39 points, not quite enough to stop a red-hot Jason
Did you see
Tatum.
some of the highlights from Irving before in the show on this?
Unbelievable.
We're doing the cry face, like getting buckets into cry, like you lost them while you're crying. But they ended up losing in the end. So
and no fault of Kyrie. He was 6 of 10 from 3-point land, 12 of 20 field goals, 9 from 9 from the free throw line.
I think Durant had a bit of an average game.
Yeah, he was quiet.
He turned the ball over a few times.
He had 6 turnovers, 23 points, 4 boards, 3 dimes. That is a very quiet game.
How did our boy Patty Mills do?
Paddy, not much either for Memory. He had just the 3 points on 1 shot from 3-point land.
He's given up time now to Kyrie being back. So.
Well, and they weren't able to work the glass. They lost by 1 point, so we can't be too critical of the Nets here. But I think Nick Claxton led him, with 8 rebounds. That's probably not good enough when you've got a 36-year-old Al Horford going to patrol the boards there for the Celtics. And Robert Williams, their starting centre, is not available. So when he comes back, they might have the advantage, the Celtics, amongst the big men. But it was the Jason Tatum show. He had 33 points, won the game with his final shot to get the win for the Boston Celtics. We've got ourselves a red-hot series on our hands here. There was some kind of talk here with the Brooklyn Nets and their superstars. Would they start favourites as a 7th seed against the Boston Celtics? The answer to that, no, but the odds were really quite even money, which is pretty crazy considering it's a 2nd seed taking on the 7th seed there in the East. To finish off the East, the Bucks had a 93 to 86 win against the Bulls this morning, our time, Sunday night over there, for the defending champions Bucks, Giannis being Giannis, he had 27 points, 16 boards. Really good game out of Vucevic. The big Croatian, he had 24 points, 17 boards for the Chicago Bulls. And today the Suns were way too good for the Pelicans. 110-99 winners there. The Suns just played their normal brand of team basketball, although CP3, by far and away the best player, 30 points, 10 assists, 7 boards. I imagine they win this one 4-zip. You'd think. Yep. There was some chat, boys, around Ben Simmons and him making a return to the Nets. We've been speculating about it all year. Is it going to happen?
Well, there are differing reports, of course. There's been that he'll be back next week. He's going to be available for either the back end of this current series or if they win the next one. And then I've seen videos from their open practices, and Ben Simmons is like, make sure you catch this, and he's doing dunks and things. So he's still doing individual drills. I don't think he's actually got back into doing team drills yet. So I'm not sure exactly what the story is and when they're targeting. Monks, do you have anything more on that for us?
No, just everything that's going on in the media, I guess. People calling it ridiculous. Old mate Stephen A. Smith saying it's utterly ridiculous that it hasn't been played. Some people have been saying that it's just a huge distraction. They should just shut him down for the season and just be done with it.
I think that's fair enough. To be honest, as well.
But then again, if you need a bit of extra, board getting defense.
Board presence. We're talking about one of the best defenders in the NBA. It's literally the points that we were just making was, are they going to be able to go and work the glass, with Claxton and Durant and Drummond going up against Al Horford and possibly a healthy Robert Williams if he's back in time. They could really use a guy like Ben Simmons.
Yeah, and I don't know, some of the stuff I've seen of Ben Simmons, he maybe looks a little bit skinny for me, whether, he's lost a little bit of his playing weight. But
isn't that big a deal?
Yeah, exactly. It's about
who else looks skinny? It's KD.
Yeah.
Like one of the best players in the NBA. He's never been, a Giannis.
I don't know. He doesn't have to be that, but it's just an observation whether that will impact his physical game at all, but maybe not. Yeah. But by all accounts, it sounds like maybe that's what the Nets are losing. I don't want to say he's going to walk back in there and save the day and then they're going to go on a huge run, but you never know.
Yeah, I think Patty Mills has come out saying that he's sort of that Simmons could be the ace in the back pocket.
Yeah.
Just keep him there. And
Paddy's always been an advocate for Ben Simmons. Obviously, very concerned with his welfare. Fellow Aussies. Paddy, ridiculously good bloke. I don't know how many times we've shouted him a beer on this show, and probably will continue to do. Just hoping that he's a positive impact on Ben Simmons over there, who has been in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons this year.
That's it. Yeah.
The other sort of thing of note, and we did touch on it just previously, and no surprises either, Frank Vogel getting the sack as the Los Angeles Lakers head coach. The writing was on the wall for this one.
Did you hear how this went down?
Not really, no.
It was announced during their last game he was getting the sack by a certain media personality who obviously had inside information. So when he got to the press conference, he's like, I've heard nothing. I have no idea.
He had no idea.
Yeah, so that was the first that came out.
He heard about it from the media before
someone
his own organisation.
Yeah, so the next day,
Luke Beveridge, gutter journalism. That's pretty poor. That's pretty poor for that's the way that he found out about it.
Obviously, this media person had the inside source in the ownership and they'd made the decision. It was probably going to come out the next day afterwards, but he'd done it during the game.
That's rough.
So a bit rough, but
the analogy here is you've suspected that you've been getting cheated on for months and months and months, but the first time you hear of it is on fucking Pornhub. That's how you find out about it. That's how you find out about it.
That's one way to put it.
That's essentially like for like comparison there. That's he's suspected it. The Lakers have been pretty ordinary considering their lineup, and then he's just seen his missus on Pornhub just getting absolutely
roasted by 3 dudes.
Sure. Your words, not mine. That's how it's unplayed here for Frank Vogel. There's no obvious kind of replacement. I was reading a little bit before. There's like 10 candidates that have got their name in the hat at the moment.
Well, that's the thing. Do you go with a new guy or do you wait until who else has been sacked, and then you're picking up someone else's retread, essentially.
LeBron, first ever player coach in the NBA. Not out of the realm of possibility.
No, it is not. But maybe it'll be like a LeBron pick, essentially getting the guy that he can.
You have to kind of consider that LeBron's going to have some kind of say into who they bring in here. Yeah.
Because all the big names, well known guys, all
have got contracts.
Contracts, and all with playerful teams, so they're busy.
Yeah.
They're like not really keen on moving to the Lakers. So.
We'll follow that one as it unfolds. I can't imagine we hear too much about it whilst the playoffs happen. Yeah, it'll be more of an off-season play, you'd imagine,
unless they go after one of the big name assistants that's at one of the playoff teams, and if they go on deep, and you'll hear more about them. Like, hey, going to get an interview of one of those guys, but. I don't know. Maybe they will go that young up-and-comer route that LeBron can mould and...
mould the coach.
Yeah. Who knows?
Shout out to Trent Naden, friend of the Esky. He was the one that suggested making LeBron player coach because LeBron gets blamed for it anyway. So you may as well just put one person in the press conference rather than two.
As we found out last week, LeBron doesn't take L's. He only takes
he does not like losing, and he hasn't done much of it either.
No.
There have been a few player coaches before.
Yeah, I can't imagine in any recent time.
Yeah, when was the last one?
1971.
1962.
50 years ago.
There you go. Yeah,
Yep.
I imagine that one will be paying a fair bit from whichever odds market you take it, whether it's plus 600 or 18, 16 farthings like that.
I'm not sure how they do the odds, but James, look it up. See if you can find Lakers head coach and see if LeBron is in that list.
Look, if we go from Sportsbet, I can't imagine that he wouldn't be on that list. It might be hard to find that at this stage.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's not coming up.
Whilst you work, we'll put that one to bed.
Let's put that one to bed.
We'll keep an eye on it as it happens.
Yep. So just a few other notes going through. So there's no dates for NBA awards yet. They have released the names of the candidates for all the awards.
When does it usually happen?
Last season, I think they said it was towards the end of the playoffs. So I think
it's just before the finals. Yeah, it's like end of playoffs, just before the finals start.
Yeah, which is same as the NFL does that, just in that little bracket in the gap between the two.
And we're talking about Grizzlies playoffs last year as well. Was that it?
Yeah.
Yep. So they
were a low seed, weren't they?
Low seed. So number 8 for the West, and they came in against Utah Jazz.
Went down 4 games to 1.
That's it. Yep.
So interesting to see how Jar and the Grizz bounce back from that upset loss to the T-Wolves moving forward.
Round
ball.
Still round ball.
One round ball to the other. That's the way that we like to go. There is UEFA Champions League action that happened during the week, a fiery week. We'll get to that in just a sec. Real Madrid go through against Chelsea. My goodness, Chelsea bottled an amazing performance there at the Santiago Bernabeu. They gave away a 3-zip lead, having lost 3-1 the week before. We kind of thought, geez, to go away and come back from a 3-1 loss at Stamford Bridge, going to be near impossible here for the Blues. They gave it a really red-hot crack, a late goal.
Well, they had it, and then they let two goals in.
Well, they let away the late goal, which forced the extra time. It being 3-1 was the scores to the away side in both legs. And then we spoke about it last week, the resurgence of Karim Benzema. He had the winner for Los Blancos for them to go through to the Champions League semi-finals. Hey, goodbye to Chelsea. And the same could be said to Bayern Munich, absolute world beaters in football, going out to the Yellow Submarines, they call them, the Villarreal. Their home stadium seats 22,000 people. Not a staple of Spanish football, although definitely punch above their weight. They sink the German juggernauts.
Definitely punch above their weight.
Yeah, you like that, what I did there as well?
Yeah,
your Yellow Submarines and sinking, they fired the Scud missile. I don't know, Scud missiles go under the water? Let's say they do.
Torpedoes.
Yeah, torpedoes.
Taking out the U-boat, yes.
The U-boat. They chucked it on the outside of the boot, 65-metre torp, bang, for the AFL term. Takes out Bayern Munich.
Can you torp a soccer ball?
Yeah, kind of. You see,
I suppose you can.
The keepers sometimes do like the outside of the boot torp. It doesn't. You can't really make it spin like a torpedo, can you?
You wouldn't really be able to see it.
No, but same kind of motion, if you will, out of the guys that generally wear number 1. Anyways, shit talk aside, Villarreal are through to a Champions League semi-final, which is interesting. They are the last Spanish team left.
Who have they got? They got
it's announced, is it not? They get Liverpool, don't they?
Liverpool.
Yeah. And it's just one leg, is it not? These semi-finals.
I have not recorded that.
No, 2 legs. Disregard.
Home and away.
Disregard. Also, I just said they're the last Spanish team after just saying Real Madrid going through. So, good thing we've got the internet to double check all these stupid things that we do on this show. Speaking of Spanish team getting eliminated, this time I am confident. Atletico had the 0-0 draw at home to City, so they go down 1-0 on aggregate, City winning at the Etihad a week before. Did you boys catch much of this quote-unquote brawl?
Yeah, I saw some of the video of it. I don't remember what the instigation was. There was definitely a bit of niggle in the end to leading up to it, but they had to be separated in the tunnel, and you can see then they've got a camera on the end of the tunnel, so it gets all the way through. So you see the vision of the two players trying to be separated. Like several players been separated by management and staff, and I think one of the Atletico guys spits on one of the City dudes.
Yeah, there was quite a fair bit of spitting that went on, and for me, that's a big no. It's a big no. It's gross. It's gross.
You are soccer players. Like, you don't need your hands, so throw some fistfuls.
Throw some punches.
Come on. Like,
what would you rather? Would you rather someone spit in your face or someone try to clobber you in the face? Because I would rather someone try to punch me in the face.
Same.
To be honest,
100% punch. But we are convicts in Australia, so
yeah, that's true. But spitting is just gross. Isn't it? Hard convicts. Oh, you spit on me, you dirty dog.
Well, if someone spat on you, what are you going to do then? You punch him in the face. Yeah, exactly. So that's how we think. That's how we wired.
It was a bad look for soccer in general.
Yeah, especially big clubs.
Well, and especially in this country where you do soccer fans and soccer players sometimes get the hard run of the mill. You're
soft,
you're a diver. It's all about the theatrics, yada yada yada, and they dish this up, and it was frankly disgusting.
Yeah, I would have loved if they just threw hands in the tunnel.
Yeah, let them go. Bring back
the
beef. I was with the uncle for Easter Sunday, and you know what we were doing? Were we talking to our wives and our grandmothers a little bit? What were we doing? Mostly watching old biffs from the 1980s. Newtown Jets, Les Boyd, Manly. We were watching all the great biffs from the 1980s. Not much spitting involved there. More haymakers.
Well,
Again, not condoning violence. Not condoning violence here on the Esky. However, if it resorts to spitting, I think I'd rather see a little bit of
I guarantee if you spat in any of those arenas, you were getting hands thrown at
you. Oh, yeah. Would I like to spit on Les Boyd these days? Him being 40 years older than me? No. I'd probably get my teeth removed.
Yes. I think, your point on the biff, like within a gladiatorial arena of sports of men battling it out, like, I don't mind if you throw a couple of hands, but the mums and dads, the young fellas don't love that, and that's what the leagues try to get rid of. But I'd prefer that over spitting. I'd rather my young fella throw hands than spit.
Yeah, it's gross. It's a shit look, and we talk about they're not role models. They just
what happened to the COVID protocols, bro?
Well, that's right. COVID's not a thing anymore. COVID's not a thing. Saw a great meme during the week. The old Bart Simpson when he's picking up the phone and I don't care about that anymore. Yeah, COVID. Since war in Ukraine and floods down here and Slapgate. That's all it took to forget about a pandemic was Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. We all forgot about it.
You forgot about the pandemic with the war, and you forgot about the war with Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. Like.
Strange creatures we are, these human beings. Very strange.
Massive media.
Very strange. Anyways, we
control the narrative.
We do have the last game that unfolded. Liverpool 3-3 draw at Anfield against Benfica. They go through. We are watching. Very.
Can you rewind it like 10 seconds?
You know what? Brawl. We can't use the word brawl. This is not a brawl.
It's push and shove. But the head flick to get this one from the right here. The spit.
That is a big spit.
That's fucking gross.
His own manager should be giving him a fucking Will Smith to the face there. Get your spit out of Man City.
Keep your spit in your mouth.
Yeah, that's bad. As was that execution of that joke.
Yeah.
So we do have.
It's a lot of push and shove.
There's nothing in it.
But
it's just other than spit.
Yeah.
We do have 2 English teams taking on 2 Spanish teams in.
Oh, did you say Liverpool won?
Yes, we've already been through. Well, they drew, but 6-4 on aggregate. A good showing from Benfica at Anfield after going down 3-1 at home in the previous leg. Monks, the semi-finals and the dates, I think, are important there, please.
Yep. So We've got Man City versus Real. First leg is on the 26th of April. The second leg is on the 4th of May.
Yep.
And after that, we've got Liverpool with Villarreal on the 27th of April and the 3rd of May.
So next week, in the middle of the week, not this week, next week, the first leg's underway. They're in the UEFA Champions League semi-finals. Let's move over to the EPL. We had that massive matchup between City and Liverpool. It was a good game, high quality, but it did end in a 2-2 draw. City
Can you bring the table up?
City probably had the better look of it. It keeps both teams well in contention for that playoff run, although we did speak last week about Liverpool having the harder run home.
We thought this was a huge match. It's going to be super important, and then draw really doesn't help either of them.
Well, it makes the...
It's still super close.
Exactly. It makes the remaining 7 games for those two teams even more enthralling, considering only 1 point separates them. Liverpool have a 5-goal advantage on goal difference, and then, it's daylight down to Chelsea there in third. The race for fourth continues to excite or underwhelm, if you will.
Yeah, I've heard from some Arsenal fans they're not real happy because they lost to Southampton.
Well, they've lost 3 on the trot now,
I know.
Arsenal.
After having
Do you remember
3 games in hand.
Esky curse. It's a thing. It's a thing. We were looking at this ladder. We were looking at the table 3-4 weeks ago, and we said, geez, Arsenal got 3 up their sleeve. Yeah. Guess what? They lost all three of those games. Pretty mediocre.
I think we said it doesn't help if they don't win those games. So we didn't. That's the exact quote. So
better clip that shit. That was a fucking hex, if you will.
They got Chelsea.
And they got Chelsea. Yeah, good luck this week. So Spurs have that 4th spot in there. They're grimy little mitts at the moment. They lost to Brighton overnight, though, so could have really consolidated 4th spot. Man U put away Norwich, so they moved to 5th and are just 3 points behind Spurs there. Brentford, Watford, Newcastle, Leicester, who really gives a shit? West Ham drew with Burnley. They're in 7th there, although they are 2 games behind Arsenal and a game behind United and Tottenham Hotspur. I think the run for the Hammers has probably run its course.
Yeah, they're a game behind in points as well. They're 2 behind, so... Yeah, they've got to make up 5 to get to the Hotspurs if they want 4th, but yeah.
Let's call it a 3-horse race. Can we agree that it's a 3-horse race there between Tottenham, Man U and Arsenal for that 4th position, although the Gunners have done themselves absolutely no favours in the last 3 weeks.
So Newcastle watch, because we've been following them.
Newcastle watch.
Leicester City, so
they're fine. 14.
They're fine.
They're going to get a bunch of oil money next week.
Yep.
Hopefully there's some protesters at their games.
Yes.
Stop the oil money. Stop saving mediocre clubs through fucking dirty oil money.
Why wasn't the protest at the Newcastle game?
It should have been there.
They should have been there.
It was a Newcastle game. It was Everton Newcastle.
It was.
That's why we got you down there.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of Everton, they
17th, 28 points. I think they'll be fine.
They're only 3 behind.
Yeah, but they've got a game in hand. This worked
have to
this
play
worked out well. Last time we were talking about Arsenal and that game in hand.
Yeah.
They are 3 points ahead of Burnley with a game in hand. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Second longest.
I think when did they have to play Burnley? They had to play Burnley coming up.
They do have to play Burnley. It's a massive fixture. It's not for
No.
quite some time, I don't believe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think it was towards the end, and depending on how they go from here to there, that might be the important one. How many games are left? Is it 6?
Well, it depends on the team. It's between 6 and 8, depending on which team you are. I think all the teams have now played at least 30 games. Some have played 32.
That's your list there.
So Everton's run home: Liverpool, Chelsea, Leicester, Watford.
Well, there isn't many clubs.
Brentford, Crystal Palace, Arsenal.
Okay,
I'm going to retract my last statement. with that run home, that is no certainty that Everton don't get relegated there.
What's Burnley's?
Look at Burnley's run, but geez, they play some good sides.
If Burnley have to play the bottom 2, then they could be a shoe-in here.
How good? How good is a little bit of relegation chat? We're just looking at teams that have been fucking ordinary all year. Could you name me 2 Burnley players? I'll go you one better. I can't name you one. Burnley have Southampton, Wolverhampton, Watford, Aston Villa, Tottenham, there's a good side.
Aston Villa
again, and Newcastle. So Burnley's run home is a lot softer than Everton's.
Couple of draws.
So interesting there that Everton. What did we find out? Is 1950 something the last time that they weren't in the top flight of the EPL. They're in real danger of getting relegated there. The Toffees. What's not as good as a toffee? A hard candy. The Toffee's going to get relegated to be the hard candies, if you will. Down the bottom there, Norwich and Watford in big trouble.
Yes, very much so.
That'll do us for soccer news. Did you have anything to add? Nothing to add?
No, nothing else to add this week.
Big Champions League matchups. Bundesliga is pretty much done. Bayern will win that. Real, I think, will win over there in La Liga. Serie A is still open to interpretation. PSG should win Ligue 1. NFL news.
Yeah. Let's go.
Baker Mayfield, where is he going, boys? Obviously, the big news a few weeks ago that Deshaun Watson going to Cleveland. That begs the question: where does Baker end up? There's been a lot of speculation over the last few weeks. The teams that have sort of kind of been thrown amongst the chat being the Seattle Seahawks, the Carolina Panthers. Or what do we think was going to happen here?
Well, I think Baker was probably doing the good thing, keeping his name in everyone's mouths and ears, reminding them he's still available by going out and doing some podcasts and saying a few things. That probably kind of taking the route that Cam Newton did last year, which didn't work out great for him and trying to pick on with the club. But of course, I think the main headline was the Browns told him one thing and then did the opposite. But hey, that's that happened. That's going to happen. They're going to do business. And unfortunately for Baker, there's not a huge amount of clubs available for spots. Like even Jimmy G, he's probably you'd pick over Baker. Is still out there floating around with no official home besides the 49ers, whether he be the backup because by all accounts Lance has been told he's the starter next year. So
Lance area,
yeah.
Damn it, it's trade area. Like at Ramsey Bay.
Yeah.
Anyways. The old Lance area.
Yeah. So Seahawks have been the chat all week. The Panthers been the recent one. Robbie Anderson, his tweet basically when the news kind of was breaking that the Panthers may be considering signing Baker. Well, his tweet was no.
No, yeah.
And then
that from Robbie Anderson.
And then I followed
the best
it up.
hair in the NFL.
Yeah, and then followed up on it with when they were reporting on his no, and he was like, "Yes, no, we don't want Baker." So
interesting.
Interesting.
I think because he's a deep threat, and Baker probably doesn't have the arm that he's looking for in that regards. So they're the two main ones at the moment, conversation wise. When I was doing some of the research for our draft special in 2 weeks, going through some of the needs in teams, there's actually more teams with QB names than I thought. But off the top of my head, I can't really think of one where that would make sense. Steelers, of course, kind of now have a hole in quarterback.
Yeah,
they did sign,
isn't it? Obviously, the passing of Dwayne Haskins last week.
Was it Joshua Dobbs? Maybe they signed another quarterback during the week, essentially to be the Haskins replacement. Unfortunately,
but it was no clear starting.
No, like the competition.
Mason Rudolph still.
Yeah. Mason's still there.
Yeah.
Trubisky's there as the kind of the incumbent, but they're looking for spots. But there's a few others that, again, it's like they've got a dude. It's just whether they want to potentially take a young dude to try and bring on that skills. Like the Colts, Baker was talking about the Colts were made the most sense for him, but now they've got Matt Ryan.
Yep.
So for them...
That doesn't make any sense, is it?
Yeah, not for him, but for the Colts, like they could draft a replacement for Matt Ryan and, do what they're doing with Jordan Love and sit him for a year or two, and then when Ryan does retire, you've got him there ready to go. Like there's a few teams like that, so...
Little shout out to Mr. Lachlan there. Thanks for showing some love. If we had any merch, we'd send you some, mate. Maybe one day. Any news there from your point of view, Monks, regarding Baker Mayfield and possible landing spots outside of Seattle or Carolina?
No, nothing really. A strong hint from media that it's going to be Carolina Panthers.
Because I don't think the Panthers want to pick quarterback at 6. So,
and as much hate as Baker gets, he's still a reasonable quarterback in the NFL. For him to not have a job next year would make zero sense. And I think Carolina or Seattle would benefit from him. You know, even if it was going to be a changing of the guard and drafting one of these quarterbacks who we'll talk about more at length next week with the NFL draft coming up. So, not a strong draft class expected this year at the quarterback position.
With a lot of hopefuls. I think for Baker, he won't get traded during the draft. I think it'll be post-draft for picks next year. So essentially peanuts in that regards. And the teams will see what they can get out of the draft, and then he might be an option for one of those teams that doesn't have something for their way or doesn't get a guy that they were angling for, and then they'll get Baker as the fallback.
Well, to this next point, it would have to take a huge turn of events.
Segue.
Cards.
Kyler Murray.
Yeah, well, if they don't want to give Murray a contract, so Murray would be the hottest name on the market. And if you're Panthers, that's the option. Seahawks.
You throw the house at him.
Seahawks, same thing. You're like, hey, I can go from Danger Russ to an even a younger version of that. Younger
and more dangerous, some might say.
Yeah, slightly smaller version in Kyler Murray.
Hard to do as well. Smaller than Russ.
Yeah, so
for those who haven't followed this at home, Kyler has stated that he's not playing at Arizona next year unless he gets a new deal.
Yes.
Do you think he's big dicking him and just trying to get paid, or do you think that's a legitimate threat?
Well, you look at how much the quarterbacks are getting paid currently, and the way he plays that position. I'd get paid as soon as I possibly could as well. He's done as much as he can for them. But hey, if the Cards don't want to pay him $40 million a year, then he's got to go elsewhere. And I think Carolina will happily pay him that money. And then maybe that makes sense for a spot for Baker. Like there is still some quarterback carousel to happen. There's a few spots still to go, and that could happen. But I think Arizona would be rather stupid.
Yeah, they should pay him. Yeah,
with the team they've built, they've essentially built that team for now. They've got Murray. You don't want to be trying to rebuild with that team, considering they want to win Super Bowls now.
And they just turfed Christian Kirk. Would have freed up a bit of draft cap with the Jags paying overs for him. Interesting to see where all these guys end up. Will we have any definitive news in the next week? Probably not, but the draft will definitely...
Post-draft, I think.
Post-draft. If we don't have answers, we'll have directions at least. Yeah. Speaking of the draft, I'll just quickly mention Stephen Gilmore, former defensive player of the year to the Colts, 2-year contract worth $23 million.
Probably a bit unders for him. So
I thought he hasn't been probably as good as he was 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, he was hurt the back end of the Pats, and then was basically an 8-game rental, I think, for the Panthers. By all accounts, I think he was good for the Panthers. Panthers probably a bit annoyed that they traded for him and only got the rental at the end of the year and didn't get to keep him, but he's gone over to the Colts, and that's a good get for the Colts. They've got a good defense there. So
that defense is going to be stout.
I'm happy for him to go over there.
But we do have the draft upcoming. It is Friday week away, so Friday after this one. There's only 21 guys that are going to attend the draft this year. They have been named. I'll quickly list them off. Matt Corral, the quarterback from Mississippi. Charles Cross, offensive lineman from Mississippi State. Jordan Davis, the big rig from Georgia, the big dog, pushing about 400 pounds and moves well for a man of that size. Nakobe Dean, linebacker from Georgia. Ikem Ekwonu, if you will, from North Carolina State. Big Icky, Sticky Icky.
Yeah, his nickname is Big Icky.
And Sauce Gardner, great name there, cornerback from Cincinnati. They reckon he's going to go top 10?
Top 5, potentially. He thinks he's the best player in the draft, so...
They always do. Kyler Gordon, another corner out of Washington. Kyle Hamilton, safety, Notre Dame. Aiden Hutchinson, defensive end, Michigan. A lot of people have got him going 1 overall.
Some chat there. Again, clickbait on the media saying that he's better than the Bosa brothers. So
that's a big rap to get. His numbers definitely support that.
14 sacks
for the former Wolverine. Zion Johnson, offensive lineman out of Boston College. Go Eagles, Golden Eagles, if you will. Jermaine Johnson, defensive end, Florida State. George Karlaftis, defensive end, Purdue. Devin Lloyd, linebacker, Utah. Drake London, one of the few wide receivers to be there from
one of the few
USC.
big wide receivers as well.
Evan Neal, offensive lineman, Alabama. Chris, is it Olave? Have we got a
no? It's
Olave.
No, it's
Olave.
It's like love. You say
love.
Love.
I love wide receiver at Ohio State.
No, it's not olive.
Olive oil.
No, it's not. It's not like
olive oil.
It's not like the olives that you love. Yeah,
Kalamata.
I'm pretty sure when I was
Chris Kalamata.
When I was watching it back, yeah, I'm pretty sure they
Chris
were
stuffed green.
Olive as well, the way they were saying it on the commentary.
Now, this is a good one. I'll have a crack.
Kayvon. That's probably the hardest name.
Thibodeau. I think that's like Go Tigers, like the French spelling there, French pronunciation. Defensive end, Oregon, Go Ducks. Jameson Williams, wide receiver, Alabama. Malik Willis, out of the Little Liberty College, quarterback, getting a little bit of Lamar Jackson kind of vibes. Big shoes to fill, obviously. Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, OSU, and Devontae White, defensive lineman, Georgia. That's the 21 guys that will be there in person, and obviously a couple hundred guys about to get their name called to start their NFL journey in a few weeks. We will have a closer look at that next week, and we will be doing some live coverage from down here in Monkey's basement whilst he's not home. Just leave a key underneath the pot plant at the front. Thanks, mate. We'll let ourselves in, and I'll make sure to leave the place nice and clean after we leave.
Yeah.
Final round.
No promises from me.
You might need to replace a toilet brush.
Why did you do the toilet brush?
Yeah, I don't know. Stuck it up my ass.
Yeah, where'd it go?
Okay, final round. Ding, ding. A short final round this week. We didn't have a big UFC event or the Australian F1 returning as per last week. Although we do have updated rankings in the UFC. Monks, if you wouldn't mind getting them.
That was probably the big one.
On the big screen. Sean, I did listen back to our episode from last week. It's not hazmat suit. It's not a big yellow suit that you'd wear to say deep clean.
Hamzat.
So the K is silent and it's not
the K is silent. I knew that.
Hamzat. He jumps up to 3 after that war with Gilbert Burns last week in the welterweight division. Only Leon Edwards in 2 and Colby Covington ahead of him. Does he get Covington next? From all accounts, I'm hearing yes. Is that what we're hearing?
Yeah, it makes sense. And there's, with Volk winning, there's some conversation about does Volk move up to take McGregor at lightweight? And there's the talk about I'd happily smack up Colby if I had to at welterweight, but
it's too big a jump, you'd think, to go.
You got to remember, Volk got titles in each of one of those divisions as he was coming down in weight as well. Not in the UFC, but but yeah, he's
5'6".
I don't think he'd give up that reach. I think everyone wants to fight Conor.
Why wouldn't you?
I'd love the Cejudo fight for him, Henry Cejudo. Him coming up, I think that'd be quite an electric fight. But yeah. I think you've got it, hit it on the nail on the head. Colby and Hamzat will fight, probably to then get the winner of Edwards and Usman. I think that's the how it'll go.
I think that's where we're at in the welterweight division. We did have fight night last night between Vicente Luque and Bilal Muhammad.
Yeah, Muhammad won by decision.
Yeah, so that's big.
Because there was a rematch between the two of them, and I think he got knocked out by Vincent in the first fight, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so Muhammad went the distance there, unanimous decision against Vicente Luque there in the welterweight division.
He called out Kobe.
Everyone wants him.
Yeah, he called out both Kobe and Hamzat as well.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, so he's like,
what's he ranked? What was he ranked that rank?
5?
5, yeah. So I think he's moved up a couple.
Yeah. Well, he'd take 5. He was 6. He'd take 5.
Yeah, he was 6. So he'll jump over Vicente. He'll drop down to 6. You would imagine. But yeah, then outside of
strong
that,
division there.
Very strong division there in the welterweight, and hard to see anyone knocking off Kamaru Usman, although Colby has shown that he's very close in those last 2 title fights. That is for sure. Not huge names on the rest of that fight night. I don't think we'll go into too much detail. There is some big news in the boxing world, though. I suppose we have to start with Tyson Fury taking on Dillian White next. So it'll be Sunday our time, Saturday night over in Pommy Land. It's going to be a packed Wembley Stadium for the Gypsy King going up against Dillian White. Do we know much about the American Dillian?
Yes. My memory.
I may have thrown you under the bus.
No. My memory serves me right,
I don't know too much about him.
The thing I remember though is him losing potentially to Wilder.
No, we can chase that one up. He is a 6'4" British. I just said he was American. He's also a Brit. There, the villain, the body snatcher, Jamaican.
Maybe it was Joshua.
Jamaican.
He lost to one of the top heavyweights, and he's kind of been there and thereabouts, but he hasn't been able to do that because he
lost to Alexander Povetkin.
He did lose to Joshua
early. Yeah. 2015, way back when he was 16-0.
Maybe that's where I
lost to Anthony Joshua.
He did beat our Joseph Parker in that.
At the O2, well. Joseph Parker there.
So coming up.
28-2, better than coming up. It's obviously going to be a tall ask to take on the best heavyweight in the world. Monks, if you wouldn't mind getting the odds up there for the Fury-White fight next weekend, I imagine Tyson will start as a strong favourite here. It's heavyweight, though. You never know. If one punch lands in the right place, you never know.
Just ask Anthony Joshua.
Ask Anthony Joshua. Ask Deontay Wilder. Ask other guys that have been absolutely fucking had their bell rung by the Gypsy King. He starts as a...
Yep, so Fury starts as a favourite, $1.17. Dylan White is out at $4.65. Method of victory, our favourite method there is TKO by Tyson Fury.
What round?
$1.72 for any round, and then...
Yeah.
What's the under-overs for rounds?
Because... Tyson's kind of like a 7-8 round kind of guy. You weigh you down to get that technical knockout. Beat the shit out of you in the process.
Short odds, Tyson Fury to win in the 10th to 12th round.
10th to 12th is the shortest. That's splitting them by 3 rounds, is it? Piece. There you go. The Gypsy King. What are the odds on him singing badly into the microphone afterwards? I'm going to give you $1.01. I want to hear it. I loved it in the last fight. What was he's given us a bit of Sweet Caroline. He was giving us a few pub versions of songs, and geez, he celebrates like a man called the Gypsy King afterwards. Looking forward to seeing how that unplays next week in London. Speaking of, we have Anthony Joshua and Alexander Usyk. No date confirmed, but likely they'll be going toe-to-toe in June. Usyk famously taking up arms to defend his home nation, along with other big names in the sport of boxing, the Klitschko brothers and Yamachenko. Come to mind. Any news around this one, if you wouldn't mind, Monks? No date confirmed, but likely a June matchup.
Yes. I think that's kind of the agreement that I heard.
Not much.
It's going to happen, but it's going to happen in June.
And no pen to paper, nothing official just yet. Just rumours and clickbait and stuff that we'll repeat on the internet. No worries.
Yeah, but I think the idea with the story is we're still following the trajectory of Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. Joshua have to keep getting his belts back to then keep back in that conversation to then chase Fury, who's kind of just sitting there just waiting because they want to do like some massive event, whether it's Old Trafford or Wembley or wherever. There's some big football stadium, fill it out with the two massive UK based fighters.
Any news?
Yeah. No news.
So having a look at the undercard there for Fury and Dillian White.
It's usually pretty light on.
It's a lot of Poms on there. Tommy Fury, the younger brother, fighting at light heavyweight. Taking on a Pole that I've never heard of, Bolanski. Polanski. That's the 5th fight of the evening, so a fair few there. All fights except for one there featuring UK boxers. So a big night for our friends, our pommy, our light-skinned friends that I won't badmouth too much when I'm talking about boxing. From boxing to golf, a great segue there. Both art forms, aren't they? Although completely different. Jordan Spieth winning the RBC Heritage at Harbourtown in South Carolina in a playoff against Patrick Cantlay, I should say. Spieth, a little bit of a quiet year for him. Good to see him back in the winners tournament, winners circle, if you will. Winning the tournament there. Obviously a long time in the wilderness before winning a few last year for the young Texan. And in sad news, but an Australian legend of the game, Jack Newton, passed away a few days ago at the age of 72. Never won a major, but did finish second twice in a playoff loss at the British Open in 1975 and tied second at the 1980s US Masters. He had 13 professional career wins before a horrible accident in 1983, near fatal accident with an airplane propeller, which ended up with him losing his right arm and his right eye. I actually didn't know he lost his right eye, which effectively ended his professional golf career. Although him being the Australian legend that he is or that he was, he learned to play left-handed and would regularly shoot in the mid-80s. So far better than any of us can do with two hands. And famously father to Clint Newton, who went on to play for the Newcastle Knights, quite a long career there for Clint. I think he is involved with the NRL Players Association these days.
He's been in and around rugby league for a very long
time. Broke up with Jennifer Hawkins. I think that's on his
true story.
True story. Clint Newton, shout out to Clint. But we are talking about the old man from Cessnock. So big Newcastle Knights fan. Cessnock, obviously home of the Johns boys. The 8th immortal. One of the best NRL players that we ever saw in Andrew Johns, and one of the best sports entertainers and mouths, if you will, in Australia, in Matty Johns, one of my favourite guys.
shit all over his playing career. He was all right 5'8", but he's a way better sports commentator.
Well, he was the second best player and in a very good family, wasn't he? And he would happily say that himself, and gave us many laughs back on the footy show.
He's just happy he didn't end up with that ass. So
yeah, that's right. The old barge ass. Speaking of, Jack Newton on the footy show, do yourselves a favour and look it up. Some of the funniest shit ever. You probably wouldn't get away with it these days. They had old Mario Fennick, the Falcon, on there, go around and have a chat with Jack Newton, and there's a funny scene where Mario makes him a cup of tea and gives it to him with the saucer. You can imagine saucer and a cup, not the greatest mix for a bloke that's only got one arm.
Probably not.
No. So it's funny. You can see Jack, he's trying to offload this useless cup of tea that he can't get to his mouth and just ends up holding it for the whole interview as Mario kind of waffles on and the boys take the piss out of him. Great viewing back in the day. Rest in peace, Jack Newton, a legend of Australian golf and a legend of getting on with life after an absolute tragedy in losing his arm. And for anyone that thinks they're pretty good at golf, to go out and get humbled by a bloke playing with just his left arm, it would have been pretty funny, I reckon, for him to go out there and pants blokes with one arm.
Yeah. I could have used some lessons off him.
Yeah, definitely. I think us playing Freeman Ambrose still would have lost to a one-armed Jack Newton. So failed Jack Newton. Thoughts with the wife and family moving forward. F1 had a week off after they all had to fly away from the great southern land back to Europe, back to the northern hemisphere. We go to Italy to the Emilia Romagna for next week's race.
That's Ferrari's home course?
Yes. I was reading about this. Obviously, big F1 aficionado.
Obviously.
I think it's named after Enzo Ferrari. I think it is in the region where Enzo grew up and kind of built the brand.
It's in Italy, so it's going to be Ferrari mad fans.
That's right. Just outside of Bologna. So Bologna being the big town, and this town is actually a small town just outside of Bologna. The Emilia Romagna. Italy gets two F1 races on the calendar. This is the first of the 2 Italian races. Any news out of you F1 experts?
Well, they've all been on the road, so there hasn't been a huge amount of news. Nothing team-wise, or there's maybe a little bit of news on the engine situations and whether how Audi were going to get involved in the sport. They want to do it different to Porsche, and there's kind of back and forth on that. So nothing kind of official there, just some intrigue of where the big manufacturers, wanting to compete with Mercedes and how they want to enter the sport.
Yes, I think to that, when we're talking about Audi and Porsche heading into F1, we sort of talked to it as if they were creating their own teams, but it seems like they might be joining up with the likes of Red Bull. I think Porsche might have been...
So Porsche wants to join, because I watched something on this, Porsche wants to join Red Bull because Red Bull's taken on the ownership of making their own engines. Currently, they're still supported and made by Honda while they build up that facility. So they're essentially building a massive engine building facility right next to their current facility in the UK, in England. So... They've got Honda for the next 5 years, and it's all talking about the 2026 kind of regulations and what that looks like. So Audi doesn't want to get involved in this, supposedly, even though they all fall under the Volkswagen group, and might go their own route, and whether they build their own engines or whether they go with a different engine provider, want to go different. So by all accounts, though, both Porsche and Audi would look to buy an existing team to at least get into it. So... whether that's like Alfa Romeo, whether that's the case in 3 to 4 years' time as well. Some of those lower tier teams they'd look to buy. So we potentially won't get any new teams added, besides maybe an extra American team. These two might look to buy other teams.
Well, I think I wouldn't really call it rumours, but I guess we have Austin Martin, Lance Stroll, his father with the team.
Well, I think he might be starting to get sick of paying all that money and not getting results.
Yeah, so there could be potential there for a takeover of some sort. So, but other than that, no real noteworthy news for the week that I can see.
Not until we get another race in the books, and we'll see how we go from there.
Well, that'll wrap us up, I think, for this afternoon. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Thank you, listeners that joined us. Thank you to new listeners popping into the comments. Love to see that. As we leave, we will leave with the Geelong Cats having a 2-point lead against the Hawthorn Hawks. It will be
said they'd come back.
It will be a nice close finish there. And unbelievably, the West Tigers have taken a 14-10 lead in front of the Parramatta Eels into the half. So the weekend of sport will continue to keep giving in these last few hours. I hope everyone had a nice long weekend. I hope the Easter Bunny brought you some, chocolate eggs or, multi-win or something that you actually wanted. Thank you for tuning in to our little podcast. We'll catch you next week. Please like and subscribe, et cetera, on the YouTube, on the socials. We'll try to be a little bit more active on those as we move forward. And we will see you next week to follow the NBA playoffs, the weeks obviously in the IPL, in the NRL, in the AFL. A big look at the NFL draft before we go live for that Friday week. And for just general dribble.
Maybe work on a mock draft for next week.
Mock draft will be coming in.
Quick mock for first round. You don't have to do the whole 7.
No, I'm going Mr. Irrelevant. 248th.
That's it.
Or whatever, 247th, whatever it is.
I think it's 355.
No, it's not. No, look that up.
Yeah, 732s. Yeah. It's 255. 255.
Yeah,
but there might be a few extras for the compensation picks, which I think bumps it up to maybe 270 something.
I think it's 250 something. That'll be something that we can discuss next week. Yeah. Mr. Irrelevant, like this podcast.
Yeah. And how many kickers in the first round?
I'm going to go on a strong leg and say 0. Thanks for listening. Hopefully you had a good weekend. If you're on the tools or on the bus to work or slacking off at work listening to us this week, I hope you're having a good one. We'll see you next week on the Esky. Catch up.
Bye.
Bye.
All done. Hit your button.